Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. It's 7 o'clock, it's Thursday, it is June the 4th. I can't believe the time is going so quickly. Behind me are some clocks. One shows international time in the Chagos Islands, one shows time here in the UK, and there it is. We're on time today. Is this the first time this week we've been on time? We're on time because Charlotte's now joined us.
Yeah, you know, we're not centred.
Eh? Not centred.
Your head's...
Well, all right.
Way.
No, it's the wrong way. Hang on. How about that? Yeah. There you go. Do you know why? Because the tape is worn off. We've been doing this so long. There's a little mark here, which I'm supposed to see. So you can just about make it out. It's a bit like when I got the parking ticket the other week up in North London. You couldn't see the markings that the bus stop was there. So I don't know where I'm supposed to sit. Anyway, William Yarwood's here. Very good morning to you, sir.
Morning, Mike.
Nice to see you. A lot of people very happy last week after your appearance, helping them with their CV.
Yeah, apparently so.
Yeah, loads of them have got jobs now, apparently.
I'm fixing the unemployment crisis one step at a time.
One step at a time. We're doing the same. I've never seen this place so busy. We've got Charlotte's here, Elena's here producing the show. Morning, guys. Pooch has now got even less to do than he had yesterday. You know, he's building an empire.
I know.
This Pooch, right?
He's just delegating
I'm not making any more
responsibility.
money, you know, but we seem to have hired a load of people, and you know, we're going onwards and upwards. And soon we will be giving you news of the launch of the new channel UK Live Online, which Pooch is literally building as we speak. So I'm being slightly disingenuous when I say he's not doing anything, because he's actually building a new studio and putting everything together for a massive big launch, which is going to be great, which you may well be involved in.
Oh wow!
We can't say too much.
Oh, I don't know anything about it, so I can't say that much anyway.
Exactly. No, it's very.
Mike just drops it live on there, so
Well,
I might be involved though, will I?
But it's literally one of the few places in Britain right now which is economically thriving, which is actually growing rather than shrinking.
This is a growth sector.
Yeah, because,
you've added about 2 points to GDP overall.
We literally have. The front page of the Telegraph. There's loads of stories to do today. One of the front pages is Rachel Reeves has been given a hard time by businesses who are saying she's literally killing the economy.
Shocker.
You know, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, who thinks that she's doing a brilliant job, and who's also said basically, what's going on with that? Why am I downloading files? I don't want to download any files. Get lost. Get away. Stop. Anyway, obviously the big story is still very much the Henry Nowak situation and the various reactions to Nigel Farage, him getting a question at PMQs yesterday. I mean, it's typical, isn't it, of this ridiculous nation of ours that, you know, people are more concerned about what Nigel Farage is saying rather than what a man with a knife is doing by stabbing somebody to death.
Yeah, quite. And also the interesting reaction is that, you know, basically a few of the papers have actually led with Farage speaking about this morning, and I think the Mirror has splashed saying, "Oh, this shows what he really is."
Yeah, well, that's what. Because old Starmer tried the old hard man tactic, didn't he? When he was like, and he even pointed. He went,
"He did."
Then it shows who you are.
It shows exactly who you are.
We know exactly who he is because
exactly who you are.
Should we do it? I think we might have the. I think we might have the clip actually. Have we got the clip of Starmer? I'm not sure. I'm not looking at all the clips at the moment. Shall we have a look at it from PMQs yesterday?
But no matter the pain we feel, there is no justification for more violence and disorder. The attacks directed towards police officers in Southampton last night were disgraceful and completely unacceptable. This is a time for serious work, not rage. And let me be clear, we will ensure anyone found engaging in disorder meets the full force of the law, as we have done before.
The full force of the law.
Full force of the law.
I mean, it would be nice if the full force of the law actually protected Henry Nowak.
Yeah, indeed.
I.e., when you turn up to arrest the guy who stabbed him, you know, try not to arrest the other guy who's been stabbed.
Exactly, and then don't say, "Oh, I don't think you've been stabbed." Actually,
no,
mate. Mate. That was the bit that annoyed me the most. Was the constant use of mate.
Yeah. Yesterday I said that, and we were talking to Gavin Ashenden and also to Stephen Barrett, the barrister. And I found that really objectionable.
Yeah, so did I.
And I was talking to a copper about it as well, and he actually disagreed with me because I said, you know, there was a time when a police officer would call you sir.
Yeah.
And I think we should return to those days because I don't care whether you're, you know, a miscreant or a criminal. You know, the police are the servants of the people.
Indeed.
And they should call you sir. They should not call you mate.
And that deference has basically disappeared. I mean, but the issue with this case as well is essentially that people are, like you said before we came on air, people are more focused on what the politicians are actually saying rather than actually the incident at hand. And obviously now, you know, they'll say that, oh, there's no such thing as two-tier policing when you've got like clear evidence of it being so. And then you've also now got this discussion of whether the police officers involved are going to be dealt with. I mean, I know one of them has actually resigned.
Yes.
One of them has actually resigned.
We don't know which one that is, but I mean, the front page of the Mail, the Tories calling for the Henry police to be investigated. Police watchdog under mounting pressure last night to investigate the officers. Because, I mean, there was an interview yesterday with Sarah Jones, who's the kind of police minister, who has got the worst fringe of any woman I think I've ever seen. And I
is it part of the Labour sort of fringe bob thing? It's the same haircut.
It's the fringe party.
Yeah,
you know,
fringe
it's like
party.
I don't know what they're going on with the fringe. The Labour haircuts are really bad. But have a look at this, right? This is Sarah Jones on the Nick Ferrari show. There's an important reason to show you this, because basically she can't... The most important question here is, where are these police officers now? Are they still working? Are they still on the front line? Have they been suspended? And she doesn't know. Have a look at this.
Minister, you say let justice take its course, but it's reported the officers involved in handcuffing Henry Nowak as he bled to death will not be referred for a misconduct investigation. Why so?
I don't think that's correct. What is happening is the IOPC are doing an investigation, and there will be consequences.
Not been referred for misconduct at this point, Minister.
So at the moment,
is it right they're still serving on frontline duties?
I can't answer that. That would be for the IOPC to
Why can't
decide.
you tell me whether they're still on the front line? Don't the people of Southampton have a right to know?
There is now a process which the IOPC, an investigation which the IOPC are undergoing, looking at all of the footage, talking to the officers, talking to the family, and they will reach their conclusions. And whatever they find, there will be consequences for any wrongdoing that is discovered there.
OK, but Minister, I asked whether they're still serving frontline duties. Do you know? Yes, whether they are or whether they're not.
I think it's for the IOPC.
But do you know whether they're still on the front line, Minister?
I am, of course, speaking to the Chief Constable. I've spoken to the Police and Crime Commissioner.
Well, what does the Chief Constable say about this?
That we need to make sure that justice is served here, and we need to get to the bottom of what happened.
Have you asked the Chief Constable if these officers are still serving? It's causing concern.
Yeah, and Nick, I'm so sorry. I do know the answer, but I am not going to say, because there is an investigation ongoing.
Minister, you say...
So she does know the answer, but she's not going to give it.
Exactly, but that's not what she said 2 seconds ago.
Before that, she didn't know, but she's spoken to the police and the IOPC, and he keeps saying to her, but do you know whether they're on the front line anymore?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. And then she says she does know, but she's not telling. I mean, who tells these people how to answer questions?
Especially with the Nick Ferrari show, right?
Yeah.
Nick is a bloody good journalist and does a great job on LBC. And basically he has endless instance where basically ministers and shadow ministers come on the show and have no idea what they're talking about. They must know at this point, oh, Nick's going to ask me all the really nitty-gritty hard questions. I should come on prepared, because I don't want to be seen like a mug.
You would imagine, right, that they do what's called media training. And I know they do, because I know people personally who are involved in media training some of these idiots, right? Because if you are a sort of out-of-work journalist, one of the things you can do is make a few quid on the side by telling these idiots how to answer questions on Nick Ferrari's show, right? I've even been asked to do it, and I won't do it because I don't want to train them. I'd rather watch them make fools of themselves. But the point is this. Surely to hell, somebody would go, right, you're going on Nick Ferrari tomorrow. So imagine you're Mrs. Fringe. What's her name?
Mrs. Fringe.
Pauline, what's her name? Sarah something. Sarah Jones. Sarah Haircut, yeah. Sarah Fringe.
Sarah Fringe.
Okay, Sarah Fringe. Nick Ferrari's probably going to say to you, do you know where these individual police officers are? Like, for example, the guy who said, oh, I don't think you have been stabbed, mate. You know, is he still working? I don't know. Well, you can't say you don't know. So what are you going to say? Oh, I'll say that I've spoken to the police commissioner and he's told me what the situation was. Well, no, here's what you say. You say yes or no.
Yeah.
You know, and in fact, if we need to get them off the front line, why don't we get them off the front line so you can say tomorrow on Nick Ferrari's show, we have removed him from the front line.
Yeah, and you can announce it on the show.
And you can announce it on the show, and you can say, we've taken some very swift action, Nick, and I'm very happy to say that this morning I can declare that this individual is currently suspended.
Absolutely. But they don't do that.
But they don't do it.
But they don't do that because I
don't...
How
stupid are they?
Because I don't actually think that... I mean, I know for a fact that a lot of these lines will come from number 10.
Yeah.
So basically, even though they'll have their own special advisors in their individual departments, and while junior ministers will maybe have... Or they'll have to rely on the Secretary of State's SPADs, basically a lot of these lines will come from number 10. It's like the Prime Minister would like you to say this on the morning round this morning, and they have to stick by that line.
And usually that would be
international law. Like that's what they'll have to do. And the problem is that makes them look so inauthentic. And basically the Tories did this as well.
Yeah.
But to the Tories' credit, to some extent, they had a few figures, Grant Shapps included, Mel Stride, who were like good at the media round in the sense that they could sort of swim around questions and pivot.
I mean, have you
this
noticed,
lot just can't.
Have you noticed that, they used to have several go-to figures, didn't they? Used to have Steve Reed.
Yeah.
They'd always put him out because he would literally say anything you told him to say.
Yeah, exactly.
And he had no conscience whatsoever.
No.
But he hasn't been on for a while.
No, he hasn't.
So I can only assume that he's fallen out of favour. Pat McFadden was always wheeled out when things got a bit tricky. But after the Mandelson papers of last week, they're not putting him out anytime soon.
They're called
because he's literally been pissing all over every single cabinet minister there is.
From a comms perspective, they're essentially called fire blankets. So essentially, whenever there's a problem, you send like your best media reporters to go on TV and defend the indefensible.
Right.
Basically, that's what the Tories used to use Grant for.
Yes.
Like, even when he was in his transport brief, he'd be on TV trying to talk about like HS2 or some new buses he was talking about. But it's just like, why did Dominic Cummings visit? Go to drive up to Durham.
He was always good value, Grant Shapps. I remember getting him on once when he was Home Secretary for about sort of
3 days.
2.5 minutes. And he came on, and he had been, I think, Secretary of State for the Environment or something like that. And he actually said to me, live on air, he said, "But don't you want to be the country that's the world leader in offshore wind?" And I went, "No, not really."
Not really,
And he went, and he was shocked. He was like, "Really? What? You don't want to be?" I was like, "No, I really don't care."
But he, along with Mel Stride, along with a few others, were essentially government fire blankets in the sense that you threw them out there to defend the indefensible because you knew, one, they were going to abide by number 10 line, but second of all, they weren't going to like stumble over themselves and make a fool of themselves.
Yes.
Labour doesn't have that because actually Labour doesn't have that kind of talent of people who, for example, with the Tory party, a lot of them were in businesses, they're in sales, they're in various industries where you basically had to do public speaking. This lot I've only ever been like charity representatives or trade unionists or public sector workers, and therefore have never had to talk to a journalist in their life.
And I see who else they're keeping well away from the front line at the moment is Rachel Reeves. You haven't seen her anywhere near a camera. You haven't seen, even Darren Jones, who gets sent into Parliament now to speak on their behalf, even he's been told, just keep a low profile, mate.
Well, probably that, after Rachel getting, shouted at by that white van man guy, I don't think they're going to bring her
Well,
back
she's
on.
not going out the streets
She's not going out the streets.
But neither is Starmer. Do you remember last week he was talking about going up to Makerfield to...
Has he not gone yet?
No, he's not going now. No, he's done.
But he promised. He promised.
He said he was going to go and campaign for Andy Burnham, or Angry Burnham as he's now known, because he doesn't like talking to anyone. And if anybody asks him, yesterday Daily Express tried to get him to talk to them, and he's like, "I'm not talking to the press." It then turns out he'd done a massive, great interview with Beth Rigby for her podcast. Death Rigby.
Hello.
So they're really running scared. And of course tonight there's the big question time on Makerfield special, which has caused a bit of consternation for two reasons. One, they didn't put Restore Britain on, so Rupert Lowe kicks off about that. But secondly, Kenyon, the reform guy, has been put up to go on, but I'm told that you think there might be a boycott going on.
So I saw on Twitter yesterday that apparently because of what the BBC said about Nigel Farage, about like, the white hot rage or something along those lines.
They managed to confuse the word, I think it was, what was the original word that he used? Pure. Pure cool hot rage, or pure cool rage, cold rage. Yeah. They changed the word pure to white. And you know who did that? It was that idiot Matt Chorley.
Yeah, indeed. Who then had to apologise.
He's such a moron.
They
used to work at Times Radio. He thought he was one of these guys that thought he was really clever.
Of course they did.
I'm Matt Chorley and I'm really clever. And you'd go, really? Are you? Why do you keep telling me then if you're that clever? And apparently he's not that clever because every time he sees the word pure, he turns it into white.
Yeah, but go off. That shows something about him, doesn't it?
And he also said it three. He didn't just say it once; it's 3 times. So it's not like he misremembered the quote.
No,
he completely and utterly kiboshed it.
But also the fact of the matter is they did apologise live on air, but I think Reform is still essentially boycotting the BBC.
Yeah.
And there's a cynical part of me that thinks they're doing that.
I'm also boycotting the BBC because it's so crap.
I think there's a cynical part of me which thinks they're doing that because they think poor old Robert Kenyon is going to go on the Question Time and essentially be piled upon by the entire of the panel.
He will be.
That's not just Labour, but that's Tories are on the panel, Lib Dems are on the panel. I mean, obviously, like you said, Restore isn't on the panel. Their excuse was basically because they haven't really stood any candidates in elections before, and their polling does not basically enable them to get onto Question Time. Now, there's an argument for that, but I think that because Business Restore actually is a relatively key player in Makerfield, I think it would have made sense to put them on question time, actually.
Totally. Also, they're polling higher than the Greens and the Tories.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if the polls are not absolutely accurate,
Exactly.
you should still at least
I think they should have
allow for an extra chair. I think that would be right. But I'll tell you what we're going to do now. I'm just going to break into the conversation we're having with William Yarwood for a moment and we'll play you actually because it's delicious, Victoria Derbyshire's apology for the BBC getting it completely and utterly wrong. I mean, can you imagine if somebody like GB News had done that and completely changed the meaning of a sentence and completely changed
Ofcom would be all over them.
And instead of saying pure cold rage, you turned it into white cold rage. I mean, I'm sorry, that's not an accident. But we're going to talk to Ben Habib now, the chief of Advance UK, because he's folded up Advance UK as of yesterday and is now turning it into something slightly different. It would appear that there's been some kind of rapprochement between him and Rupert Lowe. So let's find out what is going on in his neck of the woods. Ben, very good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mike.
Good to see you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us so early in the morning. You're looking very fresh for this time of the day.
Well, it's amazing what a splash of water can do.
Yeah, I'm hoping that you, like me, are also boycotting the BBC, not because of their terrible bias against the right wing, but because they're so bloody useless. I mean, how on earth do you get the word white out of the word pure and say it 3 times?
I was trying. I think you could perhaps associate white with very hot rage, but I think Farage said cold rage, so you can't even say white hot rage.
No.
It's white cold rage. It just doesn't go together.
No,
I was trying desperately hard to make it make sense, but
yeah. I mean, I'm afraid the only conclusion that we can draw is that it was a deliberate mistake, if you like, and they were trying to make Nigel Farage. Because I mean, the thing that really bothered me about the doings of our political system yesterday was that all of the people in the Houses of Parliament had collectively decided not to talk about Henry Nowak. Let's talk about welfare instead. And it was like, sorry, this is the biggest story of the moment. People are concerned about it. People are very angry about what happened to him. People have seen the video footage of what those police officers did. And they're sick of it. And they are angry. And so to sort of blame Nigel Farage, and I know that you and he don't see eye to eye all the time, but, to blame him as if it's his fault that this terrible atrocity happened is really tantamount for me to a betrayal of the people of this country.
Yeah, I mean, Starmer hasn't learnt anything from Southport. Straight after the killing of those 3 girls by Axel Ruda-Cabana, he was out, castigating the white working class who had gone out, and he regarded them as far right. Those protests, and he's doing the same thing again. Instead of recognising the legitimate concerns of the British people, concerns which eventually are going to boil over if he doesn't get a grip of them, he castigates them. He wishes to pigeonhole people. He wants to remove them from the debate by classifying them as far right, which diminishes their complaint, which makes them irrelevant. And this is where the political class has gone so wrong. They've got to listen to the British people. It's very simple. And again, we know that they don't listen because we still haven't got the result of our 2016 referendum. They all sit in Parliament. They all think they know what is required to be done. And they're not listening. They don't care.
No.
Starmer thinks he knows it all. It's a problem.
They just don't get it. Tell us about your announcement yesterday. What brought you to the point at which you've decided to, I think I'm right in saying, sort of fold up the chair, as it were, of Advance UK and change it into something else?
Yeah, so folding is perhaps a more emotive word than I would use.
Okay.
I launched Advance when Reform, was... I haven't got much faith in Reform, as you know, Mike.
No, I know that.
I launched
you can say it on here. Dan Wood accuses me of being a Reform shill, which I reject out of hand. So feel free to say whatever you want.
Well, I was going to say Reform moved to the left, but Reform is all over the place. I don't really know what Reform is. Farage is 1 minute removing the 2-child benefit cap. The next minute he wants to cut back the size of the state and so on. But anyway, that aside, when Reform was doing all the weird things that Farage likes to do, I saw a huge opportunity on the right-hand side of British politics to launch a serious principled party with constitutional fortitude that could come up with coherent, holistic policies that would save the country. And we went about our business and we did it really well. But with the launch of Restore Britain and the momentum they have, not just online, but also now physically in the real world, they won 10 seats in the local councils in local council elections in the Great Yarmouth area. They're doing well in Makerfield. I think it makes sense for us to vacate the battlefield for the moment and let Restore and Reform have it out with each other. Let Restore bring as much pressure as it can on Reform to actually do the right thing. Perhaps Restore will become a party we can believe in. There are a couple of issues I've got with Restore at the moment which make it challenging for me to wholeheartedly support Restore. But in the meantime, it'll at least bring pressure on Reform, and perhaps something positive for the country will emerge. And of course, if it doesn't, if they all fall flat on their face, then Advance can come back. And the reason I say we haven't folded is because actually we're parking Advance with something of which I was already chairman, something called the Great British Political Action Committee. It's not a think tank; it's a kind of do tank.
Right.
And we're going to invite our members to join the Great British Political Action Committee. So we'll keep our membership together. We'll keep our regional structure. We'll support the councillors who have joined Advance, and we'll watch the landscape. We just won't waste time fighting elections where we won't, frankly, get any traction.
Right.
And
Are you worried that
you know,
people will say, though, you formed this party and because it didn't really go anywhere and you didn't really get very many people elected in local elections, for example, that you're now kind of, taking a step back and you kind of, I mean, I'm not suggesting there's anything impropriety going on, but they'll say, well, why would we have any faith in Ben Habib? He formed this party, now he's kind of unformed it.
well, we were successful actually, Mike. We became the seventh largest political party within a matter of months. We have 38,000 members. We're still a formidable force. We didn't have to fold, as you put it. The reason I'm taking a step back is because I think it's the right thing for the country. Why would there gets to a point where people simply are confused with what's going on the right-hand side of British politics. Do they go Reform? Do they go Restore? Do they go Advance? And frankly, being candid about it, Restore and Reform have much more momentum than we do. And Restore, at least on the face of it, there are issues with Restore, but on the face of it, it's much closer to the kind of politics that I believe in than Reform is. And they'll do a lot of work for the British people, at least trying to get Reform and the Conservatives into the right place where they should be.
Right, because I mean, one of the things that I saw yesterday as a result of your announcement was Steve Laws, who I don't really think is in any way a weather vane for anything, really. The man is not really worth listening to. But the first thing he said was, with Ben Habib joins Restore Britain, I'm off. And I was like, great, maybe you could take a dinghy and go the other way back to France and hang out over there. Because, to be honest, the country would be better off without him. But, that's one of the problems for Restore, for me. It's not necessarily Steve Laws, but some of the people in his party who think that anyone who isn't white shouldn't be British and shouldn't be here.
Yeah, they have an issue with people like Steve Laws. He makes me laugh like hell. I think he's declared himself as the biggest racist in England. He wears that badge with pride.
Well, I suppose you've got to be good at something,
And one of the other tweets he put out about me was that if it was left to him, if it was left to his own devices, he'd deport me.
Yeah.
I find that so blooming hilarious.
Right.
I can't take him seriously. But, but on a serious note, there are people like that. And I think Rupert Lowe needs to, give him a good kicking, basically.
Yeah, I think he does. And I mean, I think for him to kind of ignore it and say, well, I can't control the people that join my party. It's nothing to do with me. It's not quite that simple. If he wants to be taken seriously, I think, and I'm not in any way against him. I'm all for, democracy. I've not told people they shouldn't vote Restore in order to let Reform win Makerfield. You should vote whatever way you want. And I would never say that. However, I think he does need to be a bit more responsible if he wants to be taken seriously as a political leader,
Yeah, I mean, I think there are two things at play. The first thing at play is that you don't want to give in to cancel culture.
No.
You don't want to be removing members simply because they don't curry favour with the left wing or with Hope Not Hate or whatever. Yeah. But members who clearly bring your party into disrepute, they should be removed. And I think Steve Law's input, or output, I should say, is is disreputable for Restore. I wouldn't want him in my party.
No.
Based on what he said, I would have removed him from Advance for sure.
Yeah, absolutely right. So, I mean, so what do people do if they are listening to this, watching this morning, and they have joined Advance and maybe paid money to be a member of Advance? What are they getting for that money now?
So we will join with GB-PAC. GB-PAC, the Great British Political Action Committee, it does everything that Advance does, with the exception of standing in elections, producing policy, campaigning, doing lawfare. We bring legal actions against the British government. In fact, the GB-PAC, the lady in the Claire Bullivant, its CEO, was instrumental in bringing a halt to the handing over of Chagos to Mauritius. She's brought 3 judicial reviews. She's put together multiple letters to various members of the American administration, appealing to them to help, including Donald Trump. She knows people right across the British political landscape and able to garner support from the inner circles of the political class. And I think we can do a lot of good as a cross-party movement, which is what she's got. A cross-party action committee, I should say, not movement, where we can bring pressure on people to do the right thing, including calling out deficiencies in Restore Britain, calling out deficiencies in reform. When we say we're cross-party, doesn't mean we're mates with everyone. Probably we're making very few mates. Just,
Bit like me,
shaking people up. Yeah, exactly. But you do a great job not making mates.
Yeah, I'm not interested in mates, really. I've got enough friends.
Yeah.
You know, I've been around a long time. If I want to go for a drink with a mate of mine, I've got somebody I can call right now. In fact, I can take
right
William
here,
Yarwood down to the pub and have a very nice time with him. And we don't have to agree on everything either. I don't have to do what I'm told. So I prefer to be on the outside looking in, to be honest. And I think you will do the right to be the same.
Yeah, and so we will continue to act. And if reform and restore fail, then we will come back. We will have our membership, we'll have our integrity, we'll have the moral high ground of having given them a clear run and an opportunity to save the country. And if and when they fail, we'll be back. I think.
Excellent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Well, that's what I was going to say, like Arnie. Then I thought, well, he's not quite like us, but yeah.
Well, no, he's a bit of a Democrat, isn't he? But there we are. Anyway, Ben, listen, good luck with it. Good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. You must come and check us out in the studio one of these days.
Yeah, I'd love to.
We're only down the road from where you are, I think. So we'll see you soon. Ben Habib, now running still Advance UK, but morphing slightly into a political action committee scenario. I mean, William Yarwood is here with us. Do you think that's the right thing for him to do?
What's interesting is I know Ben set up. I've met Ben before, and I like Ben actually. I've got a lot of time for him.
Yeah.
And when I met him when he first set up GB-PAC, and I thought, actually, there's not really much stuff like this in the UK in terms of a group that is focused on like giving individual support and funding to individual right-wing candidates. We're across the sort of right-wing political spectrum, from Reform to the Tory Party and other people. And I thought that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
But then Ben started Advance UK actually on the same day that Restore Britain launched, if you remember.
Yeah.
But Restore Britain started off in a similar vein of where Ben is now taking Advance, which is a sort of a think tank of some kind, or a pressure group, whatever it might be. And actually they've done the reverse. So they started off as a party and now becoming like a movement or a think tank, while Restore Britain did the other way around. They started off that way and now become a political party. I feel slightly bad for Ben in one or two ways. I think Ben is a decent chap. I think he means well, but I think that for a bit of and as you know, I'm not party political. I've got no.
I'm not.
I like Ben, I like Rupert, I like Nigel, I like Kemi. I like them all, and I've met them all personally. But the problem is that with Advance, you couldn't really compete with Farage's sort of name recognition, his star power, and the only reason Rupert Lowe's has really been able to do that is because Rupert Lowe has had a very, very focused digital game, and also because Elon Musk himself, although was pro-Advance originally.
It also remains to be seen how powerful that is, and I think the weather vane for that will be the Makerfield by-election, because I was speaking to what's his name, Hadfield, yesterday?
Jack Hadfield, I like Jack. I like Jack.
Who's quite sound on these things, and he thinks that the Restore polling is wrong, and he's
in Makerfield specifically.
Yeah,
okay,
interesting. Specifically, where he thinks it's going to be less likely that they do even as well as 7%, and it could be as low as 3 or 4.
Yeah,
and certainly I've spoken to people up there who said similar things, that the Restore kind of fanboys like young Bob and all that are walking around going, oh, we think it's 25 to 30%. 5%. It's not. So the question will be, they could still have the kind of the winning hand, if you like, because they could stop reform from winning it. However, I think if they get anything less than, say, 5%, I would say that's a massive fail.
I would say it's a massive fail, and also that could still be enough to basically scupper reform's chances.
It could still be enough to stop reform.
Yeah, exactly.
But it won't. What it won't do, I don't think, is give anyone any great faith in Rupert Lowe's powers,
and
because it will show you that it's all very well being big on social media and getting 1 million hits every time you put a statement out, but it's not converting into votes.
And Reform will also then use that as an excuse to go after them and say, look, even though they only got 3-4%, that was what got Andy Burnham in power. And what they will then do, if Andy Burnham becomes an MP and then runs against Starmer and wins, what Reform will then do, and what will be said by even other members of the right, even the Conservative Party might say this, is say like, well, Restore is to blame for Andy Burnham. That is the risk that Restore is taking.
Right.
You know, I mean, like I said,
and also if they're going to talk up themselves to a point where they're saying we are going to win, which is what they're saying. I mean, Rupert Lowe's saying they're going to win the seat. He's not, he's not pretending that. And I get the fact that you would say that, wouldn't you? Because you say I'm not entering a race unless I think I can win it. Fair, but if he really doesn't come anywhere near second, then what's the point?
Yeah, I think that's delusional. But like, I remember when the Advanced UK candidate stood in Gorton and Denton, I think it was Nick Buckley, who I also like, and he never said anything of that kind of stuff. He never said we're going to win this. He wasn't being arrogant about it.
But that was quite fortunate in a way, because he got less votes than the monster raving loony party.
The matter of the fact is he still acted like with a little bit of humility and was humble about it, and wasn't like, oh, we're going to take this seat and this is the start of our political party thing. But Restore are a bit more like that.
If Restore don't do well, they will fall flat on their face and it'll look embarrassing.
But also what is going to be even more difficult is if Restore, let's say for theory's sake, Restore do get that 5, 6, 7% or so in Makerfield, okay?
Yeah.
The members of the mainstream press will want to talk to Restore a little bit more, because that will be a huge story. This right-wing splinter group has stopped Nigel Farage's Reform UK from taking Makerfield and allowed Burnham into number 10. Journalists will be all over that. But the problem ultimately there is that, what I can see, they're very selective over who Rupert Lowe talks to. So like Camilla Tominey wanted Rupert Lowe to come on her Daily Tea podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not exactly the most hostile audience in the world.
You wouldn't have thought so.
But Camilla is, she's a bit of a bruiser.
She's tough,
She's tough, and she would take Rupert's account.
Very good interview,
and she's brilliant. But Camilla said, oh, well, they've turned me down. They've turned me down. And it's like, well, why on earth have you turned Camilla Tominey? That's a huge audience. Surely if you want to branch out and talk to people, you need to, I mean, you're right about the digital audience, like that is a big audience, but guess what? Not everyone who reads The Telegraph will be constantly using Twitter, but they might listen to Camilla Tominey's podcast. Or they also...
but there's an awful lot of Restore kind of fanboys who have got, when you look on their Twitter account, they've got some ridiculous, like, druid hooded figure as their picture, and they all turn out to be gamers, or I'm the Celtic god of fire or something. Going, really? Are you? Great. Okay then. Have you got your own house? Or
there's a level
you
of
still
like
live in your mum's kitchen.
There's a level of like internet LARP to it, like live action role playing to it, and
I've got to role play as a human. Are you? Good.
That's nice. That'd be nice. I think that basically the problem, I think, for some of the people on Restore's sort of around Rupert, not Rupert himself, is they're basically preventing Rupert Lowe from going on camera, because as we saw with the Jacob Rees-Mogg interview, which I think Jacob Rees-Mogg did a really good job of, and Rupert was very polite and very, and very,
I think
very
Jacob's
cordial.
coming on the show tomorrow.
And
we got Jacob on tomorrow.
Great man. I love him very much. Jacob basically spent the entire time agreeing with Rupert on everything, and Rupert spent the entire time agreeing with Jacob Rees-Mogg on everything, and was like, oh, come on, Jacob, come and Restore Britain. Restore Britain fans hated that, because Jacob Rees-Mogg to them is emblematic of like a Tory rot.
Yeah, they don't want that kind of, the what they regard as the impure right.
Yeah, exactly. But Rupert, unfortunately for them, gets along with a lot of these people. He constantly praises Kemi Badenoch, rightly so, I think.
Well, there's a lot of people who think that he's a sort of a sleeper agent for the Tories.
Well, a lot of people,
like he's not running in Aberdeen South, is he?
No, he's not.
Where he could. But he is running against reform in Makerfield. What's that all about?
And there's an argument to make that because Kemi put him on the Public Accounts Committee, which was a good move, actually, because he's great on the Public Accounts Committee. I recommend, if you want to watch like Quangocrats and civil servants being shouted at by Rupert, that's when he's at his best, by the way. Rupert's at his best when he's looking at accounts and having a go at civil servants for wasting taxpayers' money.
Like a proper sort of CEO type figure.
He's brilliant at that. He's amazing at that. And actually doesn't get enough praise and attention for that. But he does it all himself, right? Because that's what he's good at. But yeah, I think that the problem here, And I don't know about the Tory Restore thing. I know I've heard rumours about that, but obviously there's no confirmation about that at all. The problem is with Restore, as with Advance to some UK to some extent, is it just seems like a bit of an anti-Nigel Farage operation.
That's the trouble.
And look, I'm not party political. I don't personally give a damn. Like, it's not my business. Right. But like, if you're thinking about how to defeat the Labour Party and how to stave off possibly a growth in the Green Party, dividing the right in three sections. Reform, Restore, Advance, and then even the Tory Party to the side. I'm not sure that's conducive to defeating the left.
Also, I think the people of Britain want to give the Labour government a bloody nose, and the best way to do that is to stop Burnham from winning and to get Starmer out. Both of those things might be mutually exclusive. I don't know, but what I don't think would be good is to allow Burnham to win, thereby giving him sort of, carte blanche to think that he could then be the next Prime Minister and he could then do whatever he likes the next 3 years.
And basically then he doesn't have to abide by any of the last Labour manifesto.
Because look at what Starmer says all the time. I was given a mandate to run the country for 5 years. No, you weren't. The Labour government got voted in. You personally were not given a mandate. Get out.
But Burnham's problem is that Burnham is now basically ruled out calling an early general election. Whether he sticks to that or not is another thing. Like he could do a Gordon Brown and bottle it, as the famous song went. Or he could do a Theresa May and basically call the election. The problem is with Burnham is, even though I think Burnham's a charlatan, I think Burnham's a total charlatan, it still gives Labour sort of second roll of the dice, right? It's a sort of new breath of life. Andy Burnham comes across as more authentic, even though I don't think he is. Right. He's more left-wing, even though, of course, this guy was in the Blair government back in the olden days. He's a man to war. He's everything to everyone. But the issue is that he will give him a second lease of Labour, a second lease of life, and actually that means that if there was an election, Reform wouldn't just not win it, they would only come maybe second or third, but also Reform and even the Conservative Party and others will not have their policy platform ready. They will not have their policy platform ready, so they won't have anything really to throw out there, and whatever policy they make will be just on the fly, and it will be, no offence to them, pretty rubbish in my view, as some of the policies for Reform and the Tories have indeed been.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see what happens tonight, I guess, with this question time thing. But let's have a look, actually, just because I want to play it several times today, the BBC's apology to Nigel Farage. This is Victoria Derbyshire, because they're so full of themselves.
They are.
You don't see this very often. But let's see. Victoria Derbyshire saying, sorry.
Before we start tonight, we want to apologise for an error we made on last night's programme. In an interview about the murder of 18-year-old Henry Nowak, we mistakenly quoted the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage as saying people should respond to his death with a white, cold rage. To be clear, Mr Farage actually said pure, cold rage, as had been stated earlier in the programme. We apologise to him for this mistake. Last night's Newsnight has been removed from iPlayer and BBC Sounds. Tonight.
Yeah, what she really wants to say is that idiot they put in instead of me made a complete wreck of everything, and he's never going to be hired again. I mean, if I was the BBC, I'd say to Matt Chorley, sorry, mate, not only can you never present Newsnight again, but you can get lost out of Radio 5 Live, where he does a crappy show in the afternoon, right, as one of the world's cleverest men. And he's one of these guys that he does all these kind of little, it's what I would call sort of local radio type things. Right. Little quizzes and little stupid noises and, the kind of stuff
which
that
is
you
fine
would...
for local radio, but for national radio...
But if you're supposed to be taking yourself seriously, and he loves to take himself seriously, because you see him, I think the last time Star was out and about in Downing Street, he was there with a microphone wandering about as if he was, like the world's top reporter. Complete and utter charlatan. But here's the bottom line. How is it possible to confuse two words which sound completely different, which don't have the same alliteration, they don't have the same spelling, pure and white? I mean, can anybody think of a sentence that's got pure in it and substitute the word white?
Just say pure, like white rice, pure rice, rice, pure as the driven snow.
White is the driven snow.
Pure lives matter.
Pure lives matter.
There you go. Pure's lemonade.
Yeah,
how about that?
My car's
That's a good one.
Yeah, I got a pure
one
car.
for the teenagers. But it is ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Because it can't have been a mistake. He did it once. He said it 3 times. They didn't mistakenly misquote Nigel Farage. They deliberately misquoted Nigel Farage. That's what I think.
I don't think it's a slip of the tongue.
And I think Nigel's actually been quite generous because he's accepted their apology, but he hasn't. So he's not. I'd like to see him suing them, sue the arse off them. Quite frankly. Now, one final one for you. I know you'll like this because a lot of money has been spent, public money, and you are from the Taxpayers Alliance, campaigns director.
Indeed.
Right? Do you know that they're going to open the Universal theme park in Bedfordshire, which has so far cost £5 billion? Do you remember when they stood up there, him and Starmer and Rachel Reeves, and went, I've never been happier. My kids have never been happier. I'm announcing a theme park. And we said they're going to have the HS2 ride, where you get on a train, it doesn't go anywhere. You know, it's got no wheels on it, there's no track. You can get on a dinghy and you can sail across the artificial lake.
And they send you to the hotel
and at the
theme
other side,
park.
you get put into a holiday inn and get given some free money to spend for the rest of the day. There was another one I was going to do today, but Pooch told me it was too soon, so I'm not going to do that one. But they've come up with a name for it.
Go on, tell me.
They've come up with a name. They've spent an awful lot of money. They've been to PR agencies around Britain, and they've come up with a name. It's going to be backed by £1.3 billion worth of government cash.
Yep.
They say that they expect it to be drawing in about 8.5 million visitors a year. It's not going to open until 2031.
Of course it's not.
By which time I might be dead. Never mind not being able to go on the Big Dipper.
That's when HS2 is coming online, apparently, 2030, 2031, 2032
there's
as
a
well.
Richard III humpback ride for the people that want to see Rachel Reeves. Here's the name, right? They've come up with the name for it. It's going to be called the Universal Resort.
Oh, wow. They went to PR agencies for that, and they spent taxpayers' money on that. That's brilliant. That's amazing.
Oh, man.
That's stunning.
Yeah.
I hate this country so much.
I know. I know.
Well, I mean, what, like, I actually lost words for that one. It's from Universal, and you've had to go to PR agencies.
Yeah, and it's the theme
you've had
park.
to spend taxpayers' cash.
Let's see.
And now we've settled on the word Universal.
Yeah.
It's like, well, obviously, dude.
Yeah.
That's what your company's bloody well called. Oh,
I'm flying off to holiday on. Well, when I say I nearly said where I was going. I'm not going to say where I'm going. But there's a rather odd story in the Sun. It's an old-fashioned Sun story.
Okay.
Which I'm going to run by you. Let me see if I can find it here. Page 25. Here we go. So apparently there's a BA stewardess who was drunk.
That's me with a good sign.
It's usually the wrong way round. I mean, normally it's the passengers that are drunk, right? The BA stewardess, who was apparently serving a man on a plane, and she said to him, and he was shocked, this guy, he was a hotel worker flying, where is he flying from? I think it was, from Belfast to London. Anyway, he asked for a drink, and she came over to him and gave him the drink and said, would you like to have a go on these fun bags? And then started waving her breasts around in front of him, jiggling them. I'm sorry, I know this is old-fashioned, tabloidese, but, what a strange story. I thought I was transported back to the 70s. She actually said, would you like to have a go on these fun bags? I mean, I've heard of frequent flyer programmes.
Have they fired her? Have they got rid of her? Have they fired her?
She's currently suspended.
She's suspended.
While the BA bosses are probing the incident.
Nah, give her a pay rise.
I would say so.
Give her a pay rise immediately.
I think so. Yeah. Anyway, so I don't know whether my flight's going to be like that, but
for your sake, Mike, I hope it is.
Yeah, I know.
I think you need it, mate.
I need a bit of time off. Anyway, William, great to see you. Thank you
Good
very much
to see
indeed. William Yarwood, ladies and gentlemen, top man, Taxpayers Alliance campaigns manager. Is that right?
Director.
No, campaigns director.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Director. My apologies. Now, I think we've got Kinsey Schofield to talk to in a moment, but before that, a couple of super chats and then the news. Have a look. Have we got super chat? Yeah, here we go. From Red Rock. What do you make of advance taking memberships up to and including yesterday before the news? Fraud in my eyes. Also, I asked about getting on the show. I sent details on Substack. Okay. All right. Crikey, calm down. Morning, Mike. Parliament had a minute's silence for Floyd, George Floyd, that would be, says Loyal. I doubt there will be the same respect paid to Henry Nowak. They don't care. R.I.P. Henry. Of course they don't. They didn't even want to talk about it yesterday, and they all want to blame Nigel Farage for bringing it up. Mike, please make hoodies with the saying, let's get it on, the Mike Graham Show. I would buy different colours of them. Yeah, but they'd only be made in one size. One size fits all. Talk to Donald.
We've got Donald's address.
We've got Donald's address there. This is from the end of the show yesterday. Mike from Tasmania says, I know you're busy, but I keep trying to get acknowledged for expressing how much we like your show here in Tasmania. Common sense from 99.9% of your guests. Thank you, Mike from Tasmania. Have you got any Tasmanian devils there, mate? You send them to us. Here we go. Send all requests for merch to Donald McLeod. 1, the Mahus of Hoos in Tartan Street. It costs.
He rang me after the show.
He did rang me as well. Oh, God. Brilliant. Anyway, drunk BA stewardess in the fun bag. There you go. We don't need Sun page 25 there, by the way. You can take that out. Anyway, should we get some news? I presume Edward Hughes is off still, is he?
No.
Is he back?
Have a look at this.
Oh, no. All right, is he back? Let's get some news. Come on.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes. Just about. Well, while Mike was doing his show, I happened to be showing our new recruit, Stormy McLeod, my etchings. She seemed very interested in them. I'm not boasting, but the ladies seem to love my etchings. Maybe it's a Welsh thing? Anyway, Edwina burst in and saw what we were doing and completely got the wrong idea. Unfortunately for Stormy, Edwina is an ex-ladies UFC fighter, and she absolutely piled into Stormy. I jumped in to break things up, and the next thing I knew, Fiona, who was there, tried to pull me off. That got Edwina even madder. It all got a bit crazy. I just ran. I slept in the Ferrari, and here I am. So here is the news. Keir Starmer is a knob. That's your news. Laters, Tigers.
Coming soon, it's your chance to watch the fantastic Mike Graham and Friends live show from the O2 Shepherd's Bush Empire in May of this year. Many of you came and enjoyed the banter, the jokes and the serious moments as well, but many more of you were unable to join us for the memorable night. So now we want to offer you the chance to soak up the atmosphere in the comfort of your own home. Watch the brilliant Lewis MacLeod rattle through his impressions of Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, Keir Starmer, Nigel Farage, King Charles and even me. Believe it or not, Chortle Intel Ladies' hilarious depictions of Angela Rayner, Hannah Spencer and Bridget Phillipson. Enjoy regular features like Plank of the Night, drink along with a special plonk presentation and the entire cast of the show. Witness the star-studded night with Carol Decker, Right Said Fred and loads of our regular guests like Will Geddes, Layla Cunningham, Russell Quirk, Marilyn Hayes, Stephen Barrett, Anna McGovern, William Yarwood, even Christo makes an appearance. To help us cover the production costs, we're charging just £10 to you. But if you're a paid subscriber to Substack or a YouTube show member, you can access the 2-hour performance for free. Thanks to all of you for supporting our brand new channel. We will be doing more live shows in due course, but for right now, this is your only chance to watch us all on stage together.
Never did I think that I'd be sitting on the stage at Shepherd's Bush Empire with you two legends, the Bright Said Fred guys. I mean, fantastic. I mean, have you seen, you probably played here anyway, have you seen the posters around the back of all the people that have played here?
No.
David Bowie's played here, the Rolling Stones have played here, you know, Alanis Morissette, I mean, literally anybody you can think of, you know.
The people who haven't played here are us.
It was a BBC theatre.
It was, that's
you
true.
know, the last time these guys came on my show, and you did come on very early on, thank you very much indeed, was around about the time that Macy Gray had been invited in to sing I'm Too Sexy for My Shirt, which is bloody awful, by the way. She did a really weird version of it, right?
Did you like it? I thought it was good.
Did you like it?
I actually liked it.
Did you?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
great. You see?
Sorry.
What do I know?
Sorry,
right?
but-
I'll just leave. Anyway, no, but you were telling me that you wouldn't be allowed into the BBC to sing your own song because you've been blackballed by the BBC.
Yes.
Because of being far right.
Yes.
Very far right.
Very far right.
So far right, we're now far left.
But it's extraordinary, isn't it, that the BBC,
Yes.
who used to say own this theatre, and used to be Terry Wogan's show theatre,
Yeah.
that they could block a musician because they don't like what you're saying.
Well, yes, I mean, it's not just them, it's the music industry generally is very left of centre, woke, and also the cancel culture has been is pretty evident everywhere. So this year's the busiest year we've had since COVID. So yeah, thank you.
Because I first met.
So that was a great night, and you can now watch it live. We're going to release it. When are we releasing it? Is it Sunday?
It's released now. It's going to be shown it's going to be shown next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. What you mean? So if people click on the link, they can watch it now?
You
or?
buy the ticket.
Oh, you buy the ticket now, and you can watch it.
On Wednesday.
It premieres on Wednesday of next week when I'm not here. So, you know, if you want to see it, as I say, if you're a Substack member, you get it for free. If you're a paid subscriber, if you are subscribing to our YouTube channel, it's free. Otherwise, it's a tenner, which is just to pay for the, production costs, because all these beautiful people here don't work for nothing, would you not believe? Now, talking of beautiful people, let's talk to Kinsey Schofield, who's live for us over in Hollywood, California. Kinsey, a very good morning.
It is a good morning because Spencer Pratt is right under Karen Bass, so we have a chance. We have a chance, Mike.
Yeah, it's always good to have a chance. You know, it's the best we can hope for. Now, I know you're coming in this direction shortly, but we're also getting Prince William and Kate going in the other direction shortly for the World Cup, which is not that far away now, right?
Yeah, I think that I'm hearing it might just be Prince William. It could be Prince William and Prince George. I'm actually not hearing that the Princess of Wales would attend. If she
Okay.
does, though, I do think that Americans would be thrilled. They would lose their minds. But it would be a nice, relief from the Montecito former royals that we have to hear about pretty daily. Prince Harry spotted alone on the polo field this week. Last week, he was alone at an event in downtown LA. So they're staying in the news. And I do think Americans would be thrilled to see the Prince and Princess of Wales.
Yeah, I think they'd love to see them both. And I mean, how are people feeling about the World Cup in general there? Because, I mean, obviously, from this point of it, from the perspective of the UK, there's a lot of people not going, partly because some people are worried that they're not going to get into the country because of stuff they might have put on their social media page, 10 years ago or something. And others are not coming just because it's too expensive. The games are sort of all over the place. They're in different parts of the country. And it looks as though you'd have to sort of, mortgage your house to get over there to watch any more than one or two games,
I am not a big fan of it because I've read that there are some countries that are like killing dogs in the street to make room for the tourists. And so that's when I was kind of like, wow, I hate the idea of all of this. But what was it when they tore up a rainforest for climate activists
Right.
recently? So it's just that I guess we have to get used to that type of behavior, but I don't really feel that enthusiasm. We're so busy. We're worried about Iran. We've got so many other things going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the trouble with the World Cup and as they call it, soccer in America, because it's kind of not seen as a country that really embraces it. They're playing a lot of the games in NFL stadiums. I've seen footage of people bouncing a ball on the pitch, and it doesn't bounce very well because it's not designed for a ball to bounce on, because normally you're throwing a ball. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of slightly incongruous, it seems to me.
I am seeing the NFL though trying to make strong movements in your direction.
Yeah.
Though, so it does seem like both sports are attempting to find a new audience. But would you accept the NFL? I just don't. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, people quite like it here because it's a bit of a novelty, I think, and they said they'll go, whenever they play a game at Wembley Stadium or whatever, people will go and they sell it out, and it's a big kind of, there are many enthusiasts for it, but it will never catch on as like the national game or anything like that, you know what I mean? It's kind of, it feels like with people, it's like when you have guests coming to stay in your house, it's great, but after a couple of days you're kind of going, can you go now? Please. That's enough. That's enough hot dogs and rah-rah flags and cheerleaders and all that.
And Bud Light, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we don't like it. So, but let's talk about the other big story, I suppose, which is Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, who is kind of still. It seems to me on this side of the Atlantic, they've kind of been scratching around in the police department looking for things to charge him with, because it's now got to the point where they're saying, oh, but he went to Ascot. And I think you went to Ascot last time you were here last season, if you like, in the summer, and where he behaved inappropriately with a waitress. And you're kind of going, well, he's not a very nice man. He's clearly, got problems with women, but it's not illegal necessarily to be inappropriate. That's not a crime, and it's not clear what they've said he's done. And so, therefore, they're kind of scratching around. It looks to me like they're not going to end up charging him with anything.
I have hit my quota on the Andrew Mountbatten Windsor accusations because I feel like the most important one, the victim is no longer here to tell her side of the story.
Yeah.
Virginia Giuffre, she took her own life, and so the one person we've seen that had the audacity and the courage to, actually say, here's my first and last name, this is who I am, and to tell her story is no longer here to tell her story. So, of course, all of these Jane Does, I hope that these are not true. It's unfortunate if he did behave inappropriately, but it would be easier for us to take these accusations seriously if we knew who they were. I mean, we saw it during the Me Too movement, and it's hard to. I don't want to sound like I'm being sexist, but people tend to pile on when they see an opportunity. And that looks as, to me, it looks as if that's what we're witnessing right now. Who are you? What exactly happened? And then if the guy did something, arrest him and throw him in jail, because what they're risking is jeopardizing King Charles's authority. If he's never jailed, then it's going to look, based on all of these allegations we've heard over the last few months, like privilege.
Yes, because
like
people will
taking
conclude.
Care of him.
It doesn't need much for people to believe a conspiracy theory, does it? And people will conclude, oh well, it's the sort of the dark hand of the royal family, traditional.
Of Kemi Baden not position. It isn't. It is.
We seem to be playing a clip. Sorry, we'll come back to that. But it looks bad, and I think they should either declare, because in fairness, and I'm not sure I want to be fair to Andrew, but in fairness to him, if they haven't got enough to charge him with anything, then they should say so.
Right. Yeah, I mean, none of us like Andrew. None of us want to defend Andrew.
Right.
But you also have to, if you grew up in the United States of America like I did, it is innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
And he's being punished as much as his family is capable of punishing him. I don't know what else they can do. The king's not talking to him at all.
No.
He's not. He won't be at the Phillips wedding in the next few days. He's keeping his head low. But yes, if he's guilty of something, he needs to be held accountable for that. And if he is not guilty of something, he still needs to go away and he needs to stay out of the spotlight. But I'm not trying to sensationalize each and every story. I will if there are facts to back it up, but it does feel like an avalanche of negative stories. Here comes the masseuse from 1993. Right. Here comes this woman who said he did whatever at Ascot. Give us details. Was it illegal? And who are you?
Yes. And also the way the media, I know, and I speak as somebody who's been in it for a long time, and I was a newspaper person, and I used to work for the Sunday Times, but the Sunday Times led their paper with this story about 2 weeks ago. It was their main front page story. Andrew's been inappropriate at Ascot. And I just thought to myself, if you're going to start arresting people for being inappropriate at Ascot, you're going to have to arrest everybody that goes to Ascot. Because that's part of what happens. You go there, you get drunk, you do something stupid, and you hopefully get away with it. And I know people will say that's disgraceful, but no, that's called, in British summertime, that's called having a bit of fun.
Yeah, Ascot is messy. I mean, I dread Ascot because it is everybody getting intoxicated, and then you have to figure out how to get back to your hotel or home.
Yeah, with both shoes on and with hopefully both of your earrings, or 3 or 4 of them anyway, and depending on how many you've got. Your phone, your handbag, your wallet, all of that. Last time I went to Ascot, I was betting on the tote, and it wasn't Royal Ascot, it was just another meeting. And I was betting on the tote, and I won so much money that it was literally money falling out of my pockets in the car. And I walked out with a friend of mine who I'd gone with, and we were told we were in a box, and I had a glass of wine, and they said, we'll put it into a plastic glass so you can take it in the car, which I did. And I got to the sort of the perimeter of the racecourse, and the security guards said, you can't take that out of here. And I said, well, I've been given it. And I ended up almost getting into a bad situation with security guards, as I was a bit drunk. And I said, well, if I'm not supposed to have a plastic glass full of wine, why is the guy inside giving it to me? And they made me put it down, and it could have easily escalated into some ridiculous situation, which eventually it didn't. But, people do stupid things when they've had too much to drink. And I'm not saying that's maybe what he did, but it's pointless to say, let's have a police investigation into absolutely everything that's ever been reported ever.
Right. And no, I don't think anyone is trying to say that being inappropriate with a stranger is acceptable behavior. I just think we're trying to say, when it comes to the person and the venue, we're not surprised, and it doesn't feel like breaking news considering the person and the venue. But again, I'm not jumping at every accusation anymore. I don't think he's a good person at all.
No.
But I also don't think that he is guilty of everything that we've read about him in the newspapers in the last few years, because I do think that there were some people that saw an opportunity. Remember, there's the stripper here in the United States.
Yeah.
Like, what happened to her story?
Right.
I'm just patiently waiting to see how everything unfolds.
Absolutely. Sensible. Very sensible point of view. And so are we going to see you soon, or are you're coming on a private capacity, perhaps?
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm already exhausted and I'm not even there.
Just thinking about it, right? Well,
yeah.
I mean, bring warm clothes, because it's a very, very cold. It was a very hot summer last week, but this week's a very cold summer. And I had to put a raincoat on and carry an umbrella yesterday to go to Oxford Street. Bloody ridiculous. But anyway, great to see you, Kinsey. Lovely to talk to you. Thank you, as ever, for staying up for us. And go and have some sleep, because it's now midnight in California. Kinsey Schofield there talking to us about. And I think she's quite right. You know, this kind of hounding. And I'm not defending Andrew. I'm certainly not on his side. I think he's a ghastly individual. And he probably would be somebody that I wouldn't like if I knew him, which I don't. He's often rude to people. He's got a reputation for being a nasty character. And all of those things are right. However, it seems certainly from the press coverage of what he's been doing and from what the police have been saying, that they haven't got anything on him. You know, that they've got this kind of, vague charge of possibly sex trafficking a woman to the UK. But they're obviously finding it difficult to make that stick, because who knows whether she came willingly, whether she was paid to come. It's just all very murky. And it seems to me that if you're going to, deify somebody or crucify them, one or the other, you have to decide. And if they haven't got anything on him, they need to say so. And if they're not going to charge him, I think they should at least give him the courtesy of announcing that and saying, because it might well be that he's done something wrong, but they just don't have enough evidence to do anything with it. And I think that's fair enough, isn't it? I don't know. Anyway, we've got lots to talk about, including the fact that apparently, according to the front page, I think, of the Telegraph, there's not going to be any more. Is it Sainsbury's? They're not going to sell any more brown eggs. Is it Sainsbury's? Yeah, I think so. They're not going to sell any more brown eggs, as apparently they're bad for the planet. Huh? What's that about? Linda Dewberry's going to talk to us. We'll talk to her in a moment. But before we do any of that, let us get some news with a very bruised and battered-looking Edward Hughes.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes. Just about. Well, while Mike was doing his show, I happened to be showing our new recruit, Stormy McLeod, my etchings. She seemed very interested in them. I'm not boasting, but the ladies seem to love my etchings. Maybe it's a Welsh thing? Anyway, Edwina burst in and saw what we were doing and completely got the wrong idea. Unfortunately for Stormy, Edwina is an ex-ladies UFC fighter, and she absolutely piled into Stormy. I jumped in to break things up, and the next thing I knew, Fiona, who was there, tried to pull me off. That got Edwina even madder. It all got a bit crazy. I just ran. I slept in the Ferrari, and here I am. So here is the news. Keir Starmer is a knob. That's your news. Laters, Tigers.
Yes. I don't know what to... I think we've got to take him off the air, haven't we? I mean, in any normal working situation, if a guy turns up for work like that, you wouldn't put him on... How are we putting him on the air looking like that?
He came in before. We just get him remotely.
Yeah, but still, he's either got to clean himself up, right, before the next bulletin, or, we're not going to carry it. Just tell him, look at this from spring forward. I'm very concerned about Edward. Yeah, he's I mean, look, we've all seen it. It's like the Lost Weekend.
Yeah.
Edward Hughes looks like you've been beaten up by your wife. Well, because, what was it? Fiona had to pull him off.
Yeah.
Or pull her off.
No, she pulled Edward off.
Pulled him off, okay. Can we just have Fiona? I think Fiona's a much safer bet. Forget about the whole Stormy thing. Just get rid of him. I think he's more trouble than he's worth. When you start spending more time on one person in an organisation, you know that basically it's not sustainable. No. The loudest, what do they call the loudest wheel? He always gets the most attention, his squeaky wheel. I think we get rid of him. I'm sorry.
There's his mental health to think about, though, Mike.
But what do my gardening leave? Yeah, all right. Well, mental health or not, he needs to be taken away from. He's clearly a danger to himself and others. Yeah. So I think for the purposes of,
I'll have a word with him.
Well, we've tried that. I think you've got to take him off the air. Let's talk to Linda Dewberry, because she's worked with some nutters in her time, over in all sorts of different broadcast organisations, and I'm sure she might have some advice for us. Linda, very good morning to you.
Guy, good morning, Mike.
You've worked with some crazy people in your time, haven't you?
Yeah. I was just going to say, you and I come from Fleet Street when it was actually in Fleet Street.
Yes.
And quite frankly, I haven't seen people look exactly like that coming to work, but they haven't been that far off it.
Yeah.
In fact, some of them never went home.
Yeah. No, I mean, you come in sometimes in the morning and there'd be a bloke sleeping. In fact, there was a guy once that I knew who worked at the Mirror. We used to have these carpets at the Mirror which had, you know, there's sort of an imprint of the Mirror's logo in the carpet, right? And this guy had slept under his desk all night. And when he got up in the morning to come into conference, he had the imprint of the Mirror on his cheek. Came into conference and everyone was going, what's that? Have you got some kind of, you know, some kind of rash? And we worked out that it was the Mirror logo from the carpet that he'd been sleeping on.
I'll tell you what they used to do. My lot, because you weren't on the Mail when I was on the Mail, so that was another paper. But we used to go to our pub, which was the Harrow.
Yes.
I hasten to add, I could not last the course. But the guys, and it was mostly men, would go to the Harrow. They'd drink there all night.
Yeah.
Some of them peeled off because the Harrow actually had beds upstairs just for this emergency. And then after drinking there, they would go to somewhere I think called the Valbonne, which which you will know.
I remember that.
Which you very well. So that opened until the early hours of the morning. And then they would go to Smithfield Meat Market, where all the porters were having their soup and their early breakfast. They'd go there for breakfast, and a couple of them kept a stack of clean shirts in their desk drawer.
Yeah.
They would just peel one out, go into the toilets, clean their teeth, and carry on going.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I used to spend some time in somebody's flat. I don't want to give too much away, but it was in Fleet Street, around the back of the wine press, and there was a shop, sort of just almost directly opposite Chancery Lane, a men's clothing shop, and I used to go there in the morning and buy a shirt, and then go to work and put it on in the bathroom, so that I didn't look like I was wearing the same clothes as I was yesterday. Because I hadn't managed to make it back to my wife's house. But anyway, that's another story. Shocking. Anyway, let's talk about eggs, first of all, because I think this is a big story of the day. I know we're going to talk about Nigel Farage and all the rest of it, but what's this Miss Sainsbury's on the front page of the Telegraph today? They're ditching brown eggs and switching to white eggs in order to hit net zero targets. I always thought white eggs were the bad ones. I thought they were, you know, the ones you weren't supposed to eat.
No, I think that's, you know, like red squirrels, brown squirrels. I think we were looking in the wrong end of the telescope on that one as well. But I think that I dug into the story a little bit last night when I first saw it. And the point is that white eggs are larger, brown eggs are smaller. They come from smaller chickens, which actually have a much smaller effect on the world's atmosphere, and so they have a lower carbon footprint, according to Sainsbury's. I'm not particularly happy because I'm a girl who, you know, you remember the old slogan, you go to work on an egg?
Yeah.
Well, I've never stopped that. I have a boiled egg and Marmite soldiers most days, and I like my eggs brown.
I do. I feel a bit queasy with white eggs. You know, I actually bought some the other day, and they're sitting in the fridge, and I don't really want to eat them because I don't like the look of them. I'm looking at them going, the white eggs. I'm not keen. I prefer a brown egg as well, like you.
Yeah, I think. Yes, but it's like, it has a nice little, I know this doesn't really matter to the egg, but it's got a nice little rustic feel to it, and it sits there in my little egg cup, and I'm a happy camper at that point. You can also get blue eggs. Sometimes I get those blue eggs because I think they look pretty too. And
if you
sometimes
bought that,
Waitrose
used to do a box once where they do the different sized eggs, all the way from a sort of a quail egg up to an ostrich egg, and they're all like, I think there's 6 different eggs, and they're all different sizes.
Yeah, I remember that. That's quite interesting. In fact, my brother often does work trips to South Africa, and he has an ostrich egg for breakfast sometimes. And they are truly massive. I mean, like the yolk is like that.
It's too big, really, isn't it? It's too much.
Yeah,
I can't believe we're spending all this time talking about eggs, but I just thought, because occasionally you kind of drown in politics on this show, and you just thought, that's a good story. I think we should talk about something slightly different.
I think so. Yeah.
Before we get onto the politics. But there's a couple of good things to talk to you about, particularly media related, because the BBC, for example, having to make an apology to Farage. As I wanted to ask you about this, can we play that Victoria Derbyshire apology again? Because you don't hear it very often from the BBC, but they got this massively wrong, and I don't think it's a mistake. Have a look.
Before we start tonight, we want to apologise for an error we made on last night's programme. In an interview about the murder of 18-year-old Henry Nowak, we mistakenly quoted the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage as saying people should respond to his death with a white, cold rage. To be clear, Mr Farage actually said pure, cold rage, as had been stated earlier in the programme. We apologise to him for this mistake. Last night's Newsnight has been removed from iPlayer and BBC Sounds. Tonight.
I don't understand, Linda, and you will be able to, as more of a... I don't like to use the word veteran broadcaster, but you know, let's face it, we're not proud. How do you mistake the word pure for white, or white for pure? I mean, I don't believe that that's a slip of the tongue, because I'm told as well from Zia Yusuf's complaint that Matt Chorley said it 3 times.
He did. I'm not so sure. I think it can be a genuine mistake that he just compounded several times. It might just be, you know, that they weren't that diligent about getting the actual quote right.
Yeah.
But what I find mystifying is that they would start arguing about the difference between white and pure. To me, that does seem a little bit going into the nitty-gritty of a situation that doesn't really merit it. What I don't understand is why they came on air with a fulsome apology, took the programme off iPlayer, etc., 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 when far bigger things have happened, and things have remained on iPlayer. They've remained on streaming services, and they haven't reacted to them. They've been far too late. You remember the huge furore over Bob Villan at the Glastonbury Festival? That remained on air for far too long, and there have been other incidences where the BBC just don't react quickly enough. But they clearly are, if not scared, they are very concerned about causing any offence to Nigel Farage and the Reform Party.
Yeah, they really are. Because the other thing that's happening as a result of that, and I don't know whether this is confirmed yet, but there's a suggestion that there's a question time, you know, special tonight going out about Makerfield, at which the Reform candidate was invited. The Restore candidate wasn't invited, but at which he may not now be appearing because there's some suggestion they might be boycotting it, which I think for them would probably be a good move, because there are those who think that if Kenyon does go on Question Time, he will get monstered, and it might be difficult for him to recover from.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I think Reform have been very clever in their response to the media. They know where their power base lies, and it lies with the general public. So I think that not appearing, from their point of view, strategic point of view, might be a good idea.
Right.
I think Nigel Farage has been asked on to different things. I think he was asked on to Laura Kunsberg's programme recently, and he wouldn't go on that either.
And he wouldn't, yeah.
He doesn't actually need to go on.
No.
And frankly, although I'm not a Reform member or supporter, I think that they've been played this in a very smart way by not reacting to the media, by not being on the media. They don't need to be on the media. Frankly, politicians scramble the whole time to get airtime, and it's beginning to really infuriate the general public.
Yes.
So he knows he doesn't need to be there to keep his supporters happy, so why do it? I mean, as Sun Tzu once said in The Art of War, if the first rule of war is if you don't need to go to war, don't go.
Yes, and also don't go if you can't win. And quite often, in terms of some of these interviews that get done, particularly with Reform, they don't really get anywhere. I mean, there's a really great example. We didn't play it yesterday just because it's a bit too long, but Kathy Newman interviewing Zia Yusuf. And again, you know, she just made herself look really idiotic, and he was quite clever at playing it all, batting it all back to her and saying, well, how did you feel when you saw the video of Henry Nowak dying in front of the police and being handcuffed? How did you feel? And she just kept saying, well, I'm interviewing you, you're not interviewing me. But it's like she didn't come across as a human being, you know.
Yeah, she kind of said, this is my interview, and then failed to take ownership of it.
Yes.
Because, you know, she's faced with, whatever you think of Zia Yusuf, he is a clever man. And I think that I've seen her do that before. She reacts in quite an emotional way.
Yes.
Whereas I think the tactic there once you're into the interview should be that you are in control and measured.
Yeah.
You can't give up control. She gave up control in many senses to
Right.
Zia Youssef, and that didn't work for her. It's not the first time I've seen her do that. I mean, she's an exceptionally good journalist, and I wouldn't want to criticise her, but I too saw that interview, and I don't think it was handled that well. She's now at
No.
Sky News, isn't she? Not at Channel
She's
4.
at
It was
Sky,
done at
yeah. I mean, the
Sky.
thing is, but she kept saying, oh, this is a conversation. Well, it's not really, because you're trying to control it. It's not a conversation. A conversation is an even-handed exchange of views between two people. That's not what it is.
No, I mean, I do a lot, as you know, I've spoken before about this, but I do a lot of media training.
Yeah.
And I tell people it's an alert conversation. Don't make the mistake of thinking you can't be disciplined in that conversation.
Yeah.
It's an amplified conversation, but you mustn't relax because you have to remember that.
Yeah.
And I think most of the people I train, I hope, do remember that. Zia Youssef certainly did, but she kept making a point that she couldn't underpin.
Yeah, and that's the problem. And do people come up to you afterwards and say, thank you for giving me those tips, because that was quite helpful?
They have done, because I think people get very nervous about being on live television.
Yeah.
And often when they're not used to it at all, and particularly CEOs who are used to being in control of their organisations can be really nervous. But you have to give them a kind of roadmap. And this goes back to what I've just said. You have to give them a roadmap so they stick to the roadmap and they don't digress. Because when they digress, that's when people start to make mistakes. And it gives the interviewer the chance to nip in and ask some tough questions. But I think it's perfectly easy to do an adequate job on television. I listened to that interview because I've been watching her a lot since she started at Sky News, which is where I started in broadcasting. And I think a lot of the time she does a perfectly good job. It's just for some reason she became unseated in this particular interview.
Yeah, but I think that's the problem with a lot of these journalists, is that they get blinded by reform because they think they're bad people, and so they think they've got to somehow paint them as bad people, and they've got to they don't treat them the same way they treat everybody else, and I think that's the issue that a lot of people have with what we call the mainstream media, because they're not fair to reform, basically.
Yeah, I know. And I think that particularly my view of yesterday and Nigel Farage is that he said something in the House of Commons which everyone took exception to.
Yeah.
But really, he was reflecting the views of many people in this country and certainly of his own supporters.
Yeah.
And if people are saying, shouting around him, you know, condemn the killing, condemn the killing, condemn the violence, those are, you know, we all do that. We all know that this is a heinous, tragic situation. No one more so than the parents of Henry Nowak. And so I think that was badly done in the Commons. I think just shouting at people a short, glib phrase is not good enough.
No, it really isn't. Absolutely right. Linda, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Good to talk to you. Linda Doobly there with her take on the way the media is behaving currently around reform. And it's a sort of derangement syndrome, isn't it? You know, they get Zia Youssef on and they have to try and make out that he's in some way a racist, even though it's kind of counterintuitive, because you've got a white woman talking to a man whose skin happens to be brown about why he is being ridiculous for defending a white man for whom racism has caused his death. And you're kind of going, you know, it sort of doesn't compute. You know what I mean? We've got lots more to do, though. Lots of you saying some very interesting things on the YouTube chat. If you're watching us on YouTube, welcome to the show. Please like it as well, because we've got loads and loads of people watching. We've got 14,000 people watching. We've only got 2,000 likes. So I would say if every second one of you likes it, it would basically get us up to something like, 7,000 likes, which would be nice. And it really does help us, because the more you like the show, the more it goes into places that other shows don't reach, if you like. And it really does help us quite a lot. And subscribing is also a good thing. Again, if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. We've currently got, I think, 164,000. We're trying to get it up to 200,000 by the summer. We've got nearly 25 million views, which is not far off. And lots of you are joining every single day. So do do become part of the Mike Graham Show family, because as you know, we are working on the expansion of the channel, and we will be on my return from holiday launching ourselves at you on UK Live TV online, or UK Live Online as it's going to be called. We're going to have a new studio, we're going to have new guests, we're going to have new shows. It's going to be fantastic. And so please do continue to like the channel, because the more the merrier, quite frankly. Right now, though, it's time to talk to Jamie Jenkins, our favourite statistician, who is here with some stats for us on worklessness and the trouble with 300,000 households where work has never existed, believe it or not. Jamie, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mike. I think Rachel Reeves needs a job at landing with these worklessness figures, Mike. Cause, have you seen her? Are you going on holiday with her, Mike? Because I haven't seen her for a while. I just wondered maybe...
Well, I mean, wouldn't it be funny if we ended up in the same place and I could go up to her and go, "Hello, Rachel, do you know who I am?" And she might indeed know who I am and then leave, which I would imagine is what she would do if she saw me. But yeah, I was saying this actually to William Yarwood this morning, that all of the usual suspects who used to be wheeled out to defend the government, like Steve Reed, nobody's seen him for weeks. I don't know what's happened to him. Pat McFadden now they can't put out anymore because obviously he's been compromised by the Mandelson papers, you know. And the only one left really is Darren Jones, who seems to be wheeled out now to defend them in the Commons. But they've got hardly anybody left to put. They put out that ghastly woman on Nick Ferrari's show. I don't know if you were watching a bit earlier. Sarah Jones, I think her name is, who's the police minister with the silly fringe, and she couldn't answer the question. Do you know whether or not these police officers are still working on the front line? She didn't know.
Mike, it's absolute sham. If you do bump into Rachel Reeves, if you launch this new TV venture, she'll probably put a TV tax on you, Mike.
She probably will, yeah. What, you mean like the BBC's TV tax?
Yeah, well, you are changing trends though, Mike, because I've noticed more and more of the BBC shows, they keep advertising that they're sticking them on YouTube. So obviously you're growing the numbers.
Yeah.
And they're hoping the algorithms will start pushing some more people back to the BBC, it seems.
I know, but I mean, you know, they're falling by the wayside, because the fact is, I mean, I noticed this last couple of weeks, and I mentioned it last week, I think. Robert Peston has decided to put his show on YouTube, and the last week that they put it on, which I think was the first week of it, 7,000 views, and this was like 3 days after it had aired. And we're doing about 90,000 views per show, you know. And the same goes for Laura Kunsberg. They've put Laura Kunsberg's show on YouTube, and that's only done about 7,000 or 8,000 as well. So nobody's watching the BBC on YouTube. Nobody cares.
No, it goes to show, Mike, you are the home of common sense. I
We
imagine and most of these BBC presenters, they're going down so much, they'll probably all be on the new series of Traitors that the BBC do. You seem to be a big traitor in the country. But yeah, these figures, Mike, they came out yesterday. Obviously, everybody's talking about a lot of other things in the media at the moment, but we get those monthly unemployment figures. But what ONS do, and I used to run the figures on these, is they look at the combination of all the people living in households and how many people aren't working. So at the moment, and it is going up, we've got around, if you look at kind of working age households, Mike, because obviously if you start looking at all households in Britain, there's obviously many households with people who both retired, they're in their 70s. So you've got to take all those out the figures, because obviously they fully have retired. But if we look across the economy overall, we've got now, and it's going up, 3.1 million households, people with at least one person of working age in these households where nobody's in work. But the most stark figure, Mike, if you take the student households out, because you wouldn't expect many student households to be working, and just look at people who've never worked at all in a household. Yeah. It's the highest on record. So it's up 39,000 in the last year, 300,000 people households. It contains 429,000 people in them, and shockingly 221,000 children in these households. Right. And literally, Mike, nobody has ever worked in those households, and it's on the highest record. Literally not even worked. So they're not students, they're not, I've had a job, I'm looking for a job. They've never done a day's work in their life, Mike. And this is the worklessness crisis.
Yeah.
The benefits culture that, Pat McFadden was talking about, those backbenchers saying, how do we get more tax to pay for more benefits? This is literally, I don't know how many of those 300,000 are watching you at the moment, Mike. I imagine they're still in bed.
Well, this is the thing, because what we hear all the time, particularly from Labour, when they get accused of paying too much out in welfare. I mean, yesterday, Kemi Badenoch went for Keir Starmer on welfare. I mean, people were a bit surprised that she didn't talk in Prime Minister's questions about Henry Nowak. Instead, though, she went on the attack line about how many more people are on benefits now than there were when you took over the government. But what they all say is that an awful lot of the people on benefits though are already working, so they're only on benefits because their pay is so low that they have to be sort of topped up, which is, to me, a really stupid economic idea anyway, because we shouldn't be effectively subsidising poor wage payers. If you're running a company and you're paying people not enough money, the government shouldn't be topping that up, right? Because that's sort of uneconomical. Of course, the companies are going to go, yeah, that's fine, because they don't have to pay so much out. But, surely what the government should be doing is saying to the companies, you pay the people that you employ a proper wage, and we won't top it up. But this statistic that you've got here would suggest that there's an awful lot more people who are on benefits who have never worked and who probably won't ever work.
Yeah, and that's the problem, Mike, so that you picked two key points there. So the last 20, 30 years with the welfare system and these tax credits that they introduced, absolutely bonkers. Because you're right, you might get somebody working in, say, a supermarket, don't need to pick on any specific ones, and they're on, say, low wages and they're not doing loads of hours. And then the government will top up their pay packet with tax credits. And some of these supermarkets then are making billions of profit. So you do need to taper off these tax credits. Basically, the point of the work system is for work to pay, so we don't have to pay anything out in benefits. And on the worklessness, there's 300,000. And then the problem you've got, Mike, is with these, say, 221,000 children living in them, if you see a parent who never goes out to work, it kind of just encourages the next generation, as soon as they've hit the end of school term, when they finish school, I'm not going to go to university. Obviously, they haven't got the money probably to do that. But what do? They just go on to a life of benefits as well. So it just creates that kind of vicious circle of, well, my parents didn't work. They survived. In fact, they were doing quite well. And it all comes back, Mike, to... And that's why I mentioned about Rachel Reeves, and then you got Pat McFadden. This government, none of them have ever run a bloody business in their life. We've got no work strategy, so it's easier to say, right, well, we pay you to stay at home, and that's the big problem, Mike.
Well, it is, and I mean, all you hear Starmer and co saying is that we're going to put a lot of kids into apprenticeships, and you go, well, that's all very well, but how are they going to make any money while they're doing that? Oh, well, they're not. So we're going to give them benefits. So they're not actually off the benefits list. They're actually on the benefits list. And I don't know if you can put a number on how much that's costing. These 300,000 odd people, practically, nearly 300,000 households. I mean, how much do you reckon that's costing on an annual basis to actually pay these people benefits? It must be billions.
Well, it's 429,000 in there, Mike. So obviously, if you just start multiplying that up, it gets into a kind of a large number. So, and it's just money that... it's going up. That's the big problem as well, is under this government is going up. And that point you said, this is the most bonkers thing with this government, is the policies that they've brought in over the last kind of year and a half or so. They've literally destroyed jobs for young people. And then they're spending billions of our taxpayers' money to try and encourage more apprenticeship roles. Well, the simple thing is, don't create the damage in the first place. And I've heard so many employers now, Mike, and we've touched on this in recent weeks as well, talking about the fact that we can't afford to employ young people. It was always good, but they've got no experience. I think that all the government, it's a simple fix this for Mike. You just literally say, okay, if you employ a young person, you won't pay any national insurance. You won't pay any, you need to kind of taper it off. So if you're employing somebody, maybe they're 16, 17, 18, Mike, maybe there's no national insurance contribution for the employer, because rather than pay benefits to those people, get them working, and then just taper it down. So as you get a little bit older, maybe up to the age of 25, you start introducing a taper. It's a common sense approach, Mike, where I think me and you could probably pop to the Treasury this afternoon, come up with 10 policies to stop the boats, get people back in work, and just as two of us, and they've got thousands and thousands of civil servants who can't even work the bloody system out. It's just absolute shambles, Mike.
Well, I've just done a quick calculation on the old calculator here, as you do. And if those 400, I know some of those 400,000 people that you're mentioning there are kids, but even if you average that out and say that they all benefit to the tune of, say, £10,000 a year, which would be a lot smaller for some and a lot bigger for others. Say for a child, they get less than that. But if you're charging rent and council tax and all the rest of it to the state, if that was true, say 10,000 per head, that's 4 billion.
And it'd be higher than 10,000. Yeah, I'm sure it's higher than 10,000 as well
Yeah.
when you add it all up.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt and saying that some of them might be kids, right? But still, minimum 4 billion quid.
Yeah, and some of them, obviously, they'll have money to live, and then there'll be, I would imagine many of them are on housing benefit as well, Mike. So there's the cost. Some of them will be in private rental households as well. So there's the cost of that. But this government, we had the borrowing figures, didn't we, a few weeks back, over 24 billion in April alone. The only way the borrowing figures are going is up, up and up. Unemployment's going up, borrowing's going up. The government keeps talking about growth, but the only things that are growing, Mike, are all the problems in the economy. The only good news that we've had is absolutely hammering down in Wales, Mike. I don't know what it's like up in London at the moment.
It's not raining here today, but it was yesterday.
Yeah, well, the last couple of days, we've had 0 people coming over on the boats. I think we did have, days and days and days. And the latest figures on those were costing us 5 billion. And they keep saying, don't they, the government ministers, oh, it's great. We're getting them out. We're cutting the number of hotels. We're getting down the cost of housing all of these people.
But they're putting them all in houses, though.
Exactly. What would you rather? I mean, knowing that there's 30, 40, 50 to 100 in a hotel down the road, or not knowing there's hundreds in the communities, in the households, walking around, and you haven't got a clue where they are.
Yeah.
That is just absolutely...
The other thing that I noticed at the weekend was that the boats and the numbers on each boat is now getting bigger as well. So there's more than 100 people coming per boat now.
Well, the one thing we do need to have a grown-up conversation, Mike, is do we call them small boat crossings anymore? They're not really big.
I've stopped calling them that because they're clearly not small. These things are like ferries now.
No,
the only thing you can't get on them is a car.
Well, it's a good business. I'm surprised P&O, Mike, haven't started fetching them over. That could be a little model for them.
I know, absolutely extraordinary stuff. Anyway, Jamie, listen, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed, sir. Good to see you. Jamie Jenkins, find him on Substack, where you'll see all sorts of really, really good information and fantastic statistics and analysis all the way through the week, not just when he's on this show every Thursday, as indeed he is today. Lots more of you to talk to over the course of time. We've got Lee Harris coming up very shortly. Ben Pyle is here as well to talk about the state of play vis-a-vis Ed Miliband and the net zero. The latest net zero madness, by the way, is Sainsbury's is not going to sell you any more brown eggs. You can only eat white eggs now, apparently. Nigel Evans is going to be joining us. And also, first time ever, I think, we've got Satish Sharma coming on, who's a man of the cloth, it would appear. We're going to find out what he's going to talk to us about coming up around about 9:30. But right now, though, I don't know what we're doing here, but has Edward Hughes been fired yet? Have we got some Fiona news, or is it still him? I don't think we should put it on, I don't think we should play it. Do you know what we should play? Why don't we play instead a little... the little promo for the live show. Let's do that, if we can. Sorry to throw. Coming soon, it's your chance to watch the fantastic Mike Graham and Friends live show from the O2 Shepherd's Bush Empire in May of this year. Many of you came and enjoyed the banter, the jokes and the serious moments as well, but many more of you were unable to join us for the memorable night. So now we want to offer you the chance to soak up the atmosphere in the comfort of your own home. Watch the brilliant Lewis McLeod rattle through his impressions of Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, Keir Starmer, Nigel Farage, King Charles, and even me, believe it or not. Chortle Intel Ladies' hilarious depictions of Angela Rayner, Hannah Spencer and Bridget Phillipson. Enjoy regular features like Plank of the Night, drink along with a special plonk presentation and the entire cast of the show. Witness the star-studded night with Carol Decker, Right Said Fred, and loads of our regular guests like Will Geddes, Layla Cunningham, Russell Quirk, Marilyn Hayes, Stephen Barrett, Anna McGovern, William Yarwood, even Christo makes an appearance. To help us cover the production costs, we're charging just £10 to you. But if you're a paid subscriber to Substack or a YouTube show member, you can access the 2-hour performance for free. Thanks to all of you for supporting our brand new channel. We will be doing more live shows in due course, but for right now, this is your only chance to watch us all on stage together.
Never did I think that I'd be sitting on the stage at Shepherd's Bush Empire with you two legends, the Bright Said Fred guys. I mean, fantastic. I mean, have you seen, you probably played here anyway, have you seen the posters around the back of all the people that have played here?
No.
David Bowie's played here, the Rolling Stones have played here, Alanis Morissette. I mean, literally anybody you can think of You
The
know,
only people who haven't played here are us.
well, it was a BBC theatre.
It was, that's
You
true.
know, the last time these guys came on my show, and you did come on.
So there we are. Coming up, I think it's next Wednesday, Pooch said, we're going to be playing it out for you for the first time. If you're a subscriber, and you pay to be a Substack subscriber, you'll get it for free. We'll give you a link to watch it on. Similarly, if you're a member of our YouTube family, like if you are a member of YouTube for the Mike Graham Show, you'll also get it for free. If not, you can buy a ticket and you can watch it as of next Wednesday, which would be fantastic. And it's well worth it, by the way. And as I said, quite remarkable that I found myself on stage with Right Said Fred. Incredible. Right now, though, let's talk to Lee Harris, another sensible man. I mean, we're full of common sense this morning. He's absolutely great. Lee, very good morning to you, man. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Excellent. Now, I've got something to play you, which I haven't actually seen yet, because we've been talking a lot this morning about the BBC and Newsnight. Apologises to Nigel Farage for making what I consider to be one of the biggest blunders in broadcasting history, mistaking the word pure for white, and mistakenly, 3 times mistakenly saying it. Matt Chorley, I imagine, is not going to be presenting Newsnight anytime soon, because it was his fault for doing it. But apparently there was a bit of an episode last night where Robert Jenrick appeared on Robert Peston's show, and Peston had a bit of a meltdown. Let's have a look.
That is a travesty of Kemi Badenoch's position.
It isn't.
It is. All right, it is a travesty because this is what she actually said. Can you play what she said,
okay,
please?
well, let me answer the question.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about Black Lives Matter. I don't want to hear about White Lives Matter. We all matter. Enough of this nonsense where we keep separating everybody and splitting people into different groups. We are descending into tribalism.
So just to be absolutely clear, there is no world in which
Those are
she
her
is
words.
endorsing Black Lives Matter and
These are her words, Robert.
Hang on. The first lot was in 2020 and totally out of context. Totally out of context. Even Rupert Lowe has said about that ad that you are manipulating the death of an innocent man to score petty party points.
Not true. That is a ludicrous thing to say, Robert.
Well, that is what he said to you.
Kemi Badenoch, when the Black Lives Matter issue arose, said Black lives do matter. Then she went on to the media and said, I don't want to hear about White Lives Matter. Well, I do want to hear about White Lives Matter.
She also said in that interview, as you just heard, I don't want to talk about Black Lives Matter or White Lives Matter. She is basically saying she does not want divisive politics of the sort that you are promoting.
Then the point you're making is that her position has changed, because back in the day she said that Black lives do matter. Now she's saying that she doesn't want to talk about that, and she doesn't want to talk about White Lives Matter. But it's not about her. I'm not in the slightest bit interested in that.
Okay, your position has changed on many things. We could spend the entire interview talking about how your positions have changed, but you wouldn't like it if that was used in an attack about you.
Well, she chose to go out on the media, first thing, and attack Nigel Farage, to make it about herself and about party politics. What we are interested in is how do we actually change this so that a young life is never lost in the same way.
I mean, that sums up the problem with what I would regard as the mainstream media. Robert Jenrick there attempting to be very reasonable. And as he quite rightly says, Lee, at the end, you know, Kemi Badenoch went out there and launched an attack on Nigel Farage. So they are surely entitled under the same rules to launch an attack on her. And, you know, it's a bit like, you know, running into the street and going, you should all stop shouting at each other while shouting at people, you know? And it's like, well, that's the way the world works, isn't it? And I found it astonishing and not that surprising yesterday that actually Nigel Farage was getting the blame for everything from people rioting in Southampton to, you know, police being vilified to, you know, individual police officers having to go into hiding. You know, no mention, by the way, of the Batley grammar school teacher who still isn't able to show his face because of the fatwa that's been issued against him by the local Muslim community. You know, and so, you know, it's Nigel Farage bad, everybody else good.
Yeah. I mean, the left at the moment, Mike, are losing their collective minds. And the reason that they're losing their collective minds is because their entire ideology and their worldview is now falling apart after this absolutely, you know, horrific incident with Henry Nowak, the horrific murder of Henry Nowak. And I think this incident with Robert Peston genuinely kind of epitomises what we're seeing. I mean, to be fair, look, I just want to say to start with, the attack ad from Reform was a little bit naughty. I'm not going to condone what they did. However, they did. Zia Youssef did explain this slightly better than poor Robert Jenrick, who just could not get a word in edgeways. With Peston representing that collective breakdown right there. But that was, just from a complete, media point of view, that was awful to watch. I mean, Peston genuinely just lost it. I've watched Peston for years, like we all have. I've never actually seen him do something that bad before. So poor Jenrick couldn't even get a good explanation in any way. But the point that they were making is that in 2020, Kemi had a position where she was quite happy to say that Black lives do matter, but now Black lives don't matter and white lives don't matter. Like, she's distancing herself from the whole thing. I think they kind of maybe deliberately left that last bit off the sentence purely because they wanted to play politics. But they all do it, Mike. But I really don't think that's the issue. What I think the issue is altogether is just like we've seen with the BBC, the left at the moment. I think that they realise what is happening, and they, Henry Nowak, and I don't like simplifying it too much like this, but it's very difficult not to. But Henry Nowak is the real George Floyd. Yeah. George Floyd was a career criminal. The left made him out to be some sort of messiah. It was all complete lies. Right. Everything was based on a falsehood. Now, Henry Nowak is the exact opposite of that. A wonderful young man, kind, loving, law-abiding citizen. Yeah. Henry Nowak is what the left tried to make out that the career criminal George Floyd is. And this is real. This is real. And they're losing their minds.
Yeah, because, people forget, I think, how ridiculously over the top the whole kind of reaction to George Floyd was. In the midst of a COVID kind of lockdown, the Metropolitan Police allowed Black Lives Matter to march around the streets unhindered, without being, corralled, without being arrested, without being told to wear masks, without being told to keep their distance. They even threw bottles at police on a horseback and stuff like that, put people in hospital. Yeah. We were then told that, it was okay for a statue to be dragged down in Bristol and chucked in the Bristol Channel. I mean, just outrageous stuff. And I think, funny enough, I was talking to Pooch this morning about Colston Hall. Because William Colston, I think it was William Colston.
Yes, just up the road.
Yeah, just up the road. I mean, I think they had to rename Colston Hall, didn't they? Which was a venue
that
I used to go to all the time to see. I saw the Teardrop Explodes there. Interviewed the bloke who sings for them. I can't remember his name. But back in the back in the 80s, when I was at Bath University, I used to go there all the time. And you're not even allowed to call it Colston Hall anymore because, oh my God, he might have made some money from being a bit of a slave owner. It's absolutely unbelievable. Meanwhile, today, I was going to say today, he built like hospitals, schools, all the rest of it. Today, we got Donald Trump putting more tariffs on Britain because he says that we are not actually absolutely determining whether or not we're importing things that might be being made by slaves. It's kind of ironic, isn't it?
My hometown is Bristol. It's not far. It's just up the road. Yeah. They have completely erased all mention of William Colston, and the guy was a philanthropist. He basically built half of Bristol, donated half of his money in there. Yes. But of course, we're not allowed to talk about that. In exactly the same way that we're not allowed to talk about two-tier policing. Looking at this article in The Guardian this morning saying, even the first sentence angered me from the article. The first sentence of the article, well, the headline is the police chief warns anti-white bias claims could drive UK policing back to the 1960s. The first sentence, policing could be driven back to the 1960s by false claims officers are biased against white people, the leader of Britain's black officers. Right? That is the most loaded first sentence I have ever read. It's utter nonsense.
And they don't even see it, do they?
No. I mean, for starters, false claims, right? So they're saying immediately, right after, by the way, we already have, we've seen the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Police's, DEI plan, and it literally states in ink, it says that they are to treat ethnic minorities differently. Right. So there is two-tier policing. We know that that's true. They've been trained to do it.
There is. They've literally said it. They've written it down. It's not like that somebody's mentioned it in an interview and everybody's now trying to forget that it was ever said. It's written down as policy.
Yeah, and why do we have, and Mike, why do we have a leading black police officer?
Right.
What the hell has skin colour got to do with this?
Yeah.
Scrap
Here's a
all
question
of
for
this.
you.
Get
Do you think,
rid of it.
What do you think the answer will be when you ask the question, is there a white police officers association?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because if you imagine if you started one, you'd be accused of being a member of the KKK or something.
Yeah, it's utterly ludicrous, and I think this is going to get worse, Mike. It's going to get worse because the left are going to desperately try and cling on to this ideology. They will not accept. They're not going to admit in public that the pendulum has swung way too far. I mean, this is genuinely a nervous breakdown from the Guardian. I mean, to run a story to say that we risk going back to 1960s policing is the most ludicrous thing that I have ever read. Yeah. I mean, they're not even based in reality at the moment, and I can see why, because they're losing the battle of ideas. They're losing the argument.
Well, I've brought this up a few times, and I've mentioned it so often actually that I'm probably going to have to play the clip at some point. Kathy Newman's interview with Zia Yusuf, which was I think the day before yesterday, I don't know if you saw it, where she was desperately trying to prove Zia Yusuf to be a racist, even though he was defending a white man who had been prejudicially arrested and was allowed to die on the streets because of the fact that he was white, and the police were discriminating actively against him. She was trying to make out that Zia Yusuf was a racist for defending the white man, even though he's not white. And it was so bizarre that I was sort of rubbing my eyes, thinking, have I sort of woken up in the middle of a dream, and this is all just a really weird scene, because here's this white woman desperately trying to make out that she's more virtuous than the brown man that she's interviewing, who's defending a white man who was discriminated against by some other white men because he wasn't black.
I saw your post, Mike. I was drinking my coffee at the time, and I spat it out. It genuinely made me laugh. It really cheered me up. I mean, just on that interview alone, I've got to say, I mean, I, like you, have probably seen thousands and thousands of political interviews over the years. Yeah. That was probably one of the most skillful interviews that I have ever seen done by a politician. And the reason it was so good is because Zia Yusuf wouldn't accept the framing, which was the unfair framing that they started off. I mean, even the first question was incitement, wasn't it? Yeah. Talking about Nigel Farage's comment, and it just started off from there. But you were absolutely spot on. Again, this represents the left not being able to have a clear position anymore. That the positions that they have were built on genuine reasons. You know, we did have, obviously, I'm not going to deny that we had racism in the police many years ago, but I think we all have to kind of collectively admit now that we're better than that. Things have changed. We've come a long way. Yes. It's not socially acceptable, and rightly so, to be racist towards anybody. Right. I think we do now live in a society where people accept that that is not acceptable. And of course, by the way, I'm not saying that racism has vanished. Far from it. But we have made it, thanks to these measures in the past, it is totally socially unacceptable to be racist, and rightly so. Yeah. And I think what we've done is we pushed like I say, the pendulum has swung now so far to the other side. Yeah. And the left like that. And this is the bit that makes me so angry. They like to see, it's almost like they take gratification out of punishing us. I mean, you look at the way that Keir Starmer reacted in Parliament. Like, I mean, I got to admit, I shouted at the telly, Mike. I mean, if you think about how long that man took to even mention his name, right, to mention Henry Novak's name, he was forced to mention it by the Speaker, Lindsay Hoyle. And did you see how quickly he was to condemn anybody that talks about the actual issue, especially, obviously, Nigel Farage, and then they gaslight. I mean, what I found so disgusting about this is the way that they are hiding behind the Henry Novak's father and the words that he said. Yes, I'm sure we've all,
as if he doesn't want anyone to talk about it, which is not what he said at all, actually.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the point I was about to make. He did not say that at all. In fact, the main thrust of his speech, which I've watched multiple times, I mean, you know, the guys, I have so much respect for that man for what he was able to do. But the main thrust of that speech was very specifically criticising the way that Hampshire police dealt with his son. And he said that, you know, it's unbearable. The difference in the way the treatment between the murderer and his son was unbearable. And he said, it's actually written in, do you know what? It's written in this Guardian article where he says that Novak's father, Mark, had condemned the inhumane and degrading treatment of his son by police, but added, we do not want his death to be used to create further division, hatred, or tension. We want this story to help make our streets safer for everyone.
Yes.
For everyone. Now, to me, I take that as what he's saying is we need to eliminate treatment that is different for people. Two-tier policing. That is, he wants to eliminate two-tier policing.
Yeah, no, you're quite right. What Starmer and the other sort of virtue signalling politicians have done is basically to try and cover their arses by saying, because the previous method didn't work, which is, we can't talk about it because, there's a police inquiry. Rubbish. Of course you can talk about it.
Yeah.
We can't talk about it because there's a live case going on. Rubbish. Of course you can talk about it. Now they're going, we can't talk about it because the family don't want us to. Rubbish. Also rubbish, right? Talk about it. Nigel Farage has the nation behind him. Everyone was horrified by what they saw. There's no doubt that people are in agreement with Nigel Farage, and only really people like Robert Peston and other politicians are condemning us for having these thoughts.
I think it's morally repugnant, Mike. I think that the way that they are behaving. Do you know what? If they were to stand up and say, "Right, we'll hold our hands up," we had good intentions. I like that. Actually, this is the point that Zia Youssef was making.
Yeah.
Nobody is impugning the intentions of someone trying to bring in an anti-racism policy. Of course not. But you have to judge that policy by its outcomes. And a boy has died. I'm furious, Mike. Like everyone else, I have that cold rage. And this is what it's come to. To see the left, to see them to hide behind the father's words because they will not admit what we're doing. They will not admit what's happening, in front of our eyes. We're being told to not believe our eyes and our ears.
Yeah.
We're being told we're not allowed to discuss about it. It feels like that the country's a tinderbox again. And honestly, I think this is going to get worse before it gets better because they are not going to give up without a fight. The fact that Keir Starmer had the balls to stand up in Parliament and say those words back to Nigel Farage, where he was asking a very legitimate question. He could have answered that in a very different way, and he chose not to. I'm absolutely furious.
Yeah, he's an absolute disgrace. Listen, I've got to run. Lee, great to talk to you because, as ever, you make an awful lot of sense, but we're running a bit late, as we normally are at this time of the day, so I apologise to Ben Pyle, who's waiting to talk to us, and we're going to talk to him in a second. Lee Harris there, talking an awful lot of sense. Isn't it disgraceful, the way that these politicians are trying to twist Nigel Farage's words, but also twist the words of Henry Nowak's father, Mark, who did not say he doesn't want to have it discussed, who did not say that, he doesn't want to create division by having people like Nigel Farage speaking on his behalf. No, what he did say was that he actually wants the country to become a safer place. He wants the streets to be safer for everyone, in his words, which means the police need to stop treating people differently because of the colour of their skin. It's as simple as that. And we're saying it, Nigel Farage is saying it, and all sensible people agree with it. Well, let's talk now to Ben Pyle, our man in the sceptical corner on climate change, and quite rightly too, because I've got a question for him, which I'm about to ask. Ben, a very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mike. How's it going?
Sorry, I'm very well. Sorry to keep you waiting. It's one of those days, I'm afraid, where people just, rabbit on for longer than they're supposed to. I'm going to ask you, first of all, have you got any brown eggs in your fridge? Because if you have, you're an absolute disgrace and you're killing the planet.
Yeah, I haven't got any eggs. What, no
really?
Eggs? No. I'm just not very organised, that's all. I'm not sure which ones I prefer. I did see them a few months ago. I remember getting some eggs. I don't get them very often because I'm renovating the house. I don't really have a kitchen.
You haven't got a kitchen? Does that mean you're living off like Deliveroo and shit?
I don't have the money for takeaways. No. I have
They're really expensive, aren't they?
Yeah. No, I'm well. There's no ceiling. There's no plaster on the walls in the kitchen. There hasn't been for a long time because I'm doing it all. So there's an air fryer in what will be the living room and a bread maker and a microwave.
I was going to say, you got a microwave. You got to have a microwave somewhere. You're sort of you're rekindling my faith in the sort of bachelor lifestyle. I'm quite jealous.
Yeah, well, no one would have me because it takes me 2 years to just finish one room, and I said, just a couple of months, and then 2 years later, well, I've managed to finish this room. But
well, I hope you're using sustainable practices.
Well, you don't have much choice because it's like the eggs; it's all inflicted on you. You try and buy the right paint or the right whatever chemicals you need to treat the walls or whatever, and it's all quite restricted. Paint's quite runny these days. Everything's water based. Some of it's all right, but everything's subject to immense loads of regulations.
Yeah.
Now even eggs are being treated.
Do you know what
in the same way.
my pet bugbear at the moment, right, is bananas, right? Because apparently now you can only either buy green bananas, which are not ready to be eaten, or sort of bananas which are so ripe that if you don't eat them like straight away, literally as you're walking out of the shop, they just go to rack and ruin. I bought these bananas a couple of days ago in a Sainsbury's because and they only had one kind of bananas, fair trade bananas, right?
Yeah.
And fair trade doesn't actually mean anything other than crap bananas. So they may well be fair trade, but actually they're not fit for human consumption. It's
you have to plan. You have to plan
I bought about
a
bunch of 5 of them, right? And without exception, this is the only one that hasn't got a sort of collapsed area because they've almost liquefied inside the skin. It's awful, and I just, I long for the days when you used to have those waxed apples and people went, "Oh, those are really bad for you because they've got chemicals in them." Well, good. It's called preservatives.
Do you get them from the supermarket? They tend to be greener in the supermarket than the greengrocer.
Well, I don't really have a greengrocer around where I live, and in London, there's very few things like greengrocers. They've been outlawed, because you can't afford to run your own business. You can only be a supermarket giant and have like mini supermarkets from one place to another. There's no. I could go to Borough Market, which is very nice, but they probably cost about £500 each for a banana or something. So I don't tend to go there for my bananas. But no, it's just this whole kind of this what I call tyranny of net zero, which has now affected the egg market. It's affected the vegetable market. It's affected our energy consumption. I'm going to talk about electric cars in a minute because Pooch is currently sitting in his Tesla watching this show. They're feeling very smug, right? But well, I'm not going to say this because it would be unkind. But for my money, I wouldn't sit in a Tesla in case it spontaneously combusts. And you suddenly in park. Did you see that story about the cars off the coast of, I think it was Southampton? There's a whole load of these JQ Chinese electric hybrid cars, and they suddenly burst into flames, and 33 of them have been destroyed, sitting in a port.
I missed that, but just before we go on the food, but before we go on to the EVs, I would suggest there's a lot of net zero coming into your supermarket and into your fridge.
Yeah.
They're going to take. I think Ed Miliband was talking yesterday about how meat is going to be reduced and dairy is going to be reduced.
Yeah, we've got to eat less red meat, haven't we?
Yeah, and this has been a long time in the coming, and they're running into a brick wall, I think. And it was, I remember when they tried it the last time Number 10 tried this. This was under Boris Johnson, and they said in the morning, "Oh, we're thinking of a meat tax." By the afternoon, it had been kiboshed absolutely.
Yeah,
because they knew that there was such an outrage. We need that outrage but again, and we need to explain that because they're even more tin-eared now than they were then.
Yes.
But then they tried to get the Climate Assembly, if you remember that.
Yeah.
In the 2019, it was in early COVID days, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They convened it and they tried to get the poor Climate Assembly. They bombarded them with false science, with fake claims and fake scientists saying, "Oh, well, you see, it might be a bit annoying that we have to eat less meat, but it means you're going to get less cancer." No scientific evidence for this whatsoever. No. And they try to bombard them with all these choices to say, "Oh, would you rather tax it? Would you rather ban it? Would you rather ration it? What would you rather do?" And they were rejecting all of these things. And the what they had to do. The conveners of the assembly, which are just green blobbers, as you might expect, green wonks from weirdo organisations, fake academics, and government departments, they just wrote it up and pretended that the members of the assembly, 110 of them, I think, said that they agreed with the Climate Change Committee that there was a need to reduce meat and dairy, but that's not at all what happened. It was complete fiction. So the green blob, if you like, or the green the end of the civil service, the people that are delivering this have really managed to con themselves and the government that they're going to get public buy-in for this, but they're on a hiding to nothing. They're going to find out that it's extremely unpopular on top of all the sort of energy stuff. So remember this: net zero isn't just about the electricity that comes into your house that you can't really see. It's all about your other choices, and the closer we get to 2050, the more that those choices are going to be inflicted on you. Those standards, and it's not going to be fun.
And the more and also the more expensive everything then becomes because of all of the ridiculous kind of add-ons that you have to do in order to ensure that everything is somehow greener and safer and better for you. And some of the worst things you can eat, by the way, are these literal sort of vegan processed foods that you can buy. Like you can buy a pulled pork sandwich, but it's not really pulled pork. It's like artificial meat, and it's horrific. It's literally made of, you might as well have made it out of cardboard and leaves,
Especially for someone who likes
soy sauce on it, and you go, oh, this is lovely.
Yeah, for a proper cook like you, and I know you put your menus up and so on. No, there's no comparison between even ready-made stuff, let alone synthetic stuff, and stuff that's just been cooked by someone who knows what they're doing and cares about it. But this is. I mean, I'm not joking when I say it's all going to be at some point meals ready to eat in government allotted sachets that you stick a straw in, and then that's your daily ration. These people are insane. We forget we don't really have in this country, unfortunately, a sort of a political culture that recognises when we're dealing with an ideological lunatic. And unfortunately, that means that ideological lunatics have gone unnoticed as they've colonised our public institutions and our politics. But they really do want to control every single aspect of our lives. It's not just about energy. It's about your lifestyle. It's like, I mean, not for nothing, people who saw this coming were comparing them 20 years ago to the Taliban. They called them the Green Taliban. Yeah. And they said they're not coming up through, like the routes that you'd expect the likes of the Taliban to come through. I mean, we've got that ideological battle to contend with as well. They're coming out of Eton. They're coming up through Oxbridge. They're coming through establishment institutions.
Well, let's not forget, we've got a Prime Minister who's a vegetarian, right? Not only that, but we've also got... I think Darren Jones is a vegan, and there's all sorts of people who are at the top levels of government now who don't eat meat. So they think it's perfectly normal to tell everybody else not to do it.
Yeah. I think they think it's their job. I mean, the time was when it was only the extreme parts of the food system that were subject to regulation. You shouldn't sell contaminated or meat. We had that sort of bureaucracy. But that sort of bureaucracy we need, and that's great. That was part of our strength. We had a very demarked situation where we had regulators who were very strict where we needed very strict regulation. But they've got more and more interested, Mike, in our daily life, in our and it's all about a lack of trust that we are capable of managing our own lives. They say, we need to make sure you don't smoke and drink too much, don't eat too much.
I know. It's like, get out. Just get out of my life. Get lost.
We've got nothing better to do, I think. And
I now feel the urge to go and buy like 100 brown eggs just to annoy them. Anyway,
and then let them go off, and then give them the benefit of the
and then throw them at people. That I don't like the look of. Anyway, there we are. Ben, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed, Ben. Good luck with the renovations in the house. Ben Pyle, man with no kitchen. Who apparently is eating currently out of an air fryer and a microwave. I quite admire that as there's a certain wildness to it, isn't there? Kind of a bachelor lifestyle that we've all sort of left behind many years ago. Pooch is back in the studio. He was out in his car a minute ago. Were you watching the show from the car?
Yeah.
I like the look of that, because we're going to talk about his car in a second, because it's going to be time. I've decided to bin off the news with Edward Hughes, because it's so disgusting. I can't have it, right?
I've just been
So,
on the phone with him. That's
no.
why I didn't-
Oh, right, okay, good.
Yeah, things aren't good.
No, all right, we'll get an update from you later. But I'll tell you what we'll do. So instead of doing the news, let's do Mike's meltdown. Now, I don't know whether you've got a picture of Pooch in his car when he was in there watching. There you go. That's me interviewing Lee Harris, right? And Pooch is very proud of his new Tesla that he's got. You can see the T there, even though he's lost a few friends because they've gone, oh, no, you bought a car that's made by Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And people are so mad, right, that they can't stand it. They're going, oh, we quite like Teslas, but the thing is, it's Elon Musk's company, so it's terrible. But, you know, the problem is, and I don't include Pooch in this because Pooch is a very sensible guy and not at all swayed by the kind of virtue signalling part of the world that so many people come from. But do you remember when people did buy Teslas when they first came out? And it was all about, you know, oh, yeah, I'm going to get an electric car because it's better for the planet. And, you know, you people driving around in those horrible gas-guzzling machines and polluting the air and killing children and, you know, doing really nasty things. You're all really horrible. But look at me. I'm really virtuous and I've got loads of money. So I can spend tens of thousands of pounds on a very expensive electric car. And they are lovely cars, right? And Pooch has been filling me full of what can only be described as envy by describing how when he goes to France in the car, he practically just puts his feet up, you know, the car drives itself, it tells him when to stop, it tells him where the food is, tells him where the electric charge points are, tells him, you know, there's a dry cleaners over there, if you've got anything you need washing, you know, the car just does everything for him, right? So I'm like, this is pretty cool. Anyway, came in this week, Monday, right? Came in Monday, and the car, you notice these things, right? I mean, I normally don't notice anything, but the car was parked the wrong way round. Normally he's parked nose in the car parking space, but today, Monday, it was parked nose out. And I thought, wonder why he's done that? And I just assumed, like a stupid person who's not au fait with electric cars, I just assumed, well, he just wants to drive it out instead of having to back it out and then turn it round. And he went, did you notice the car? I was like, yeah, I noticed it. What's the big deal? Yeah, you didn't talk about the show. No, what about my car? He said, he goes, yeah, he parks itself. He goes, I'm like, oh, brilliant, that's great. So, what do you want me to do? A medal or something? He's like, no, but, you know, he said, I found out at the weekend, you just literally put it in a position and it parks itself, backs in, you know, knows exactly where the, you know, beep, 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 all that, does all that. Brilliant. I went, all right, great. But I said, I've never understood how, does it also parallel park? Oh, yeah, it does that. Parallel parks as well. So you can be on a road, you can, like, find there's a tiny space to get into. I always used to pride myself on, if you can do it in one, you can do it. If you can't do it in one, you never get in, right? You have to go off somewhere else. Anyway, he said, oh yeah, you just park it there and you hit a button and it parks itself. Fantastic. He said, in fact, I'll show you. So yesterday, after the show, we went outside into the car park and as you know where this is going, right? Yeah. So there's more cars now. So all the spaces are taken. So we drive the car out, and he says, "I'm gonna show you how it parks itself." And just a message from the mother of my children saying she needs a self-parking car. Yeah, well, don't get a Tesla. So he goes, yeah, watch this, and he presses a button. And I mean, it's very impressive. It's like a lovely big screen, and it's got all these, and you can see everything. There's all the cars are there. There's like almost an artist's impression. And there was another car in front, so it wouldn't do it because it sees the other car, and so it won't move. So it sits there. The other car disappeared, hits the thing. This manoeuvre is not possible, or something. It said. Oh, okay. And then it was because there was somebody walking behind, and you could see the figure. They were walking like that on the screen. It was quite impressive. And then they got out of the way, and he went, all right, hit it again. This manoeuvre is not possible. And it didn't work. So he had to park it himself, right? Which it's still, I mean, it's still got it's big screen and everything. You can see it's got a rear view mirror and all that. But my car's got that. Well, I said I can do that. But it was typical because it's when you want to show off and so show everybody how great your gadget is, and it doesn't work. You know, it's like having a hairdryer if you're Peter Murrell and you go, but you haven't got any hair though. Well, never mind. Check this out. £3,000 worth of hairdryer doesn't work. But the other thing is, right, I'm still now being haunted by these bleeding JMOs or whatever they're called. Waymos, these self-driving cars. Because I pulled up, I don't know if I told you, I pulled up next to one of the lights the other day. Lord Viking says Pooch can drink beer while the car drives itself. Yeah, I mean, you can. You can get, but you're not allowed to get in the back. And if it was me, if I had a self-driving car, I'd want to be in the back, right? Because a lot of people have said that the self-driving car problem in America was that as soon as they launched them, people were having parties in the back. You know, they were getting in, getting drunk, having sex, taking drugs, you know, and they had to change the sort of the rules of who could use them. But that's the weirdest thing. I pulled up at the lights and I'm sitting there like that, you know, and I went like that. And there's nobody there. And there's literally a car with nobody in it, driving. It's really weird. I'm not happy about it. And as I said before, I want to know why the government and the local government, particularly Sadiq Khan and the Mayor's office, have allowed these cars to be driven around London, because I don't know who's responsible for them, right? I don't know, for example, if one of them goes haywire and starts running people over, or, you know, suddenly starts, you know, bumping into other cars, who's to blame? And if you do get hit by one of these cars, or you hit one by mistake, what do? Does it stop? What if it doesn't stop? What if it keeps going? What if, you know, you chase it? What do you do? Who do you report it to? Do you ring a number? I don't know. Who do you exchange details with? You go knocking on the window. Hello? There's nobody in there. So what happens? I don't know. Anyway, so to hell with technology as far as I'm concerned. I'm not a Luddite. I quite like, you know, I like my phone. I like my iPad. I like my car, which is a great car and does quite a lot of good things. For example, it's got, actually, here's one for you. Has it got the, I might have something on you here. Has it got the, can you project the speedometer onto the windscreen?
It's up this way, yeah, of course.
Bollocks. I thought about having on that.
Well, you need to get a new car, Mike. We've got the poll here.
Oh, yeah, we have. I forgot about that. Yeah, so it shows the poll. The poll is I need to get a new car. Should I get another Maserati? 25%. A Reliant Robin, very funny, 26%. I don't think I'd get in it, to be honest. An EV, 6%. You see, they're not keen.
No.
A tank, 44%. Mr. Pothole had a tank. Yeah, he came into London in it once. He rented it from somebody. But you know what happened to it? It got stuck in a pothole. Somewhere near Westminster. Anyway, there we are. So that's that. So listen, Teslas are great cars, and I would get one just to annoy everybody who doesn't like Elon Musk. But I'm not sold on electric cars yet, I'm afraid. I still like, and when you put your foot down in a Maserati, let me tell you, the noise it makes is something to behold. It's beautiful. So that's my meltdown for today. Oh, it's about 4 seconds, and that's the smaller engine as well. If I get the bigger engine, which is the Trofeo, you'll be able to tell me what that means in Italian. Trofeo, it's like the top of the range. Like mine's a Medina, which is the mid one, and it's just a 2-litre engine. But there's a 5-litre engine one, and I spoke to my old boss at Talk, who's a big car man. He said, don't get that because you'll crash it because it's too quick. It's literally 2.8 seconds or something, 0 to 60. And when I put mine in sport mode, it goes like a rocket. It's amazing. A couple of super chats before we talk to our next guest. Nigel Evans is here. Mike, I should be a guest on your show someday, says Cindy Smith. Well, yeah, but you live in Michigan, though. You'd have to come to London. Mike, why has Peter Bletchley not been on? You two were a great team. You know, it's just been difficult. Peter's been doing this big tour, and we tried to get him on a couple of times, and it's difficult because he lives a little bit far away. And, you know, getting him here and getting him home and all of that stuff. We're still trying. But, you know, it's one of those, yes, I'm sure. Although I think we found out Dan Hodges yesterday, we offered him the chance to come on. I think he's not going to come on. So we're going to just have to see how we get along without you, as they say. You know, if you don't want to come on this show, you're an idiot, frankly, because this is the big show and it's the one show to be on because it's the one place that we're going somewhere. Most other shows are dying on their arse, I'm afraid. We're not. We are growing. So, time to speak to Nigel Evans, a man after our own heart. He's been up in Makerfield, I know, in the last few days, so we'll get his view on how things are going up there. But also, how about his view on the way that this sort of political debate has been going, and Kemi Badenoch versus Nigel Farage versus Keir Starmer, etc. Nigel, very good morning to you, sir.
Mike, how are you doing?
Very well indeed, very well indeed. Good to see you. I know you were up, I saw you did a little walk and talking video from Makerfield the other day. I'm finding it quite difficult to kind of figure out exactly what the polls are saying because they're all kind of slightly all over the place. You know, Restore Britain are saying they're doing better than the polls are suggesting. One of the polls, which has got them on 7%, was quite a small sample. Other people have said to me that they think they're more likely to be on 3 or 4, but they could still make the difference and stop Reform from winning. What did you find when you were up there?
I'm sorry, I'm the poor man's Dan Hodges, Mike, but nonetheless, I'll try my best here. Well, I fought 2 by-elections in my parliamentary career, one in Pontypridd where I knew I was going to lose, and one in the Ribble Valley where it was the 13th safest Conservative seat in the country. And I was told the night of the by-election that Newsnight had done a poll, and I was going to come second, and there's no prizes for coming second in a by-election. It's a difficult one to call. You're absolutely right. If I was going to do it on the basis of posters in windows, then Andy Burnham is clearly well ahead.
Right.
I saw probably 4 to 5 Andy Burnham posters for each one that I saw of Reform. I didn't see any Restore or any other political party for that matter. What happens in by-elections normally is people vote tactically. There's a squeezing going on.
Yeah.
So those who want to do the Labour Party severe damage are going to vote Reform. Those who want to see Keir Starmer chucked out of 10 Downing Street, absurdly, will be voting Labour. And so we're in a position that almost anything could happen, but it's got to be clearly one of those two.
Right.
I spoke to one couple who said, me and my dad, we're voting tactically. We'd normally vote Tory, but we're going to vote for Reform. And that was the only sort of sense I got that sort of tactic is going to be used. So I would expect on it, if no more comes out, if nothing damaging comes out towards Andy Burnham, my money would be going on him. Always look at where the bookies are saying,
Yes.
Mike, and the bookies are saying it's going to be a Burnham victory.
Yeah, they've got him something like 3 to 1 on, I think. I'm just looking at Rob Kenyon's Twitter actually here. It says, who's the Reform candidate. A Salvation poll shows Labour are just 3 points ahead, 43% versus 40%. And so, you know, it's sort of anybody's guess. But and I suppose regardless of how small the contribution is from Restore Britain, they could make that difference between a 3% Labour win and a 3% Reform win, really.
Oh no, Rupert Lowe is there to ensure that he's doing damage to the Reform chances. I mean, the animosity between Farage and Lowe knows no bounds. And we all know, right, that Restore isn't going to win. So why are they there?
Yeah.
And they're there to do damage to Nigel Farage. Nobody will be smiling more broadly on June the 18th, in the early hours of the 19th, I guess, when the result comes in, than Rupert Lowe if the difference between Labour and Reform is lower than the margin that Restore is able to get there. I mean, I got no sense. I didn't speak to anybody there who's voting Restore, but it is incredible that somebody who has just started this political party is sort of hitting 7-8% in the opinion polls. That's not a bad margin, you know.
Yeah, no, not at all. And what do you make of the Tory candidate there? Because, you know, one of the things that I think has been quite remarkable is that hardly anybody's talking about the Tories. And I know it's a Labour area, but it was also a Leave area, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2/3 of people in Makerfield voted Leave. And as I was walking around the estate, I just got the sense as to why people, and it was actually a really nice estate. This was fairly middle class, I would say.
Right.
And I just got a sense, you know, because my constituency was just a bit above Makerfield. And our areas were the areas that people forgot about or took for granted in many ways. People really didn't care too much about people who lived in Makerfield. You just go out, do your duty, vote Labour in that case, and shut up for the next 4 to 5 years. And that's one of the reasons why people in Makerfield voted Leave, because they were tired of the bureaucrats in Brussels dipping their bread in our gravy, taking our taxpayers' money and spending them somewhere else. And so I remember once, Mike, he's now in the House of Lords, Culvia Ranger. Before he was in the House of Lords, he used to be an advisor to Boris Johnson.
I remember him well, yeah. We used to get him on talk quite a lot, actually, in the old days.
Yeah, get him back on. He's a good guy. But he came up to me in the Strangers Bar just before the referendum in 2016, and he said to me, I guess people, in the end, it's going to be Remain, isn't it, Nigel? And I said, no, Culvia, no, Britain is going to vote to leave.
Yeah.
And I said, do me a favour, Culvia, go out onto the terrace, and the person standing over there, and I've not spoken to him, is Graham Jones. He's the MP for Hyndburn. Go and ask him what people in his constituency are doing. So he went to speak to Graham, and he came back and he went, my God, he said, everybody's voting Leave. I said, absolutely. And part of the problem, Mike, is that in the Westminster bubble, everybody just listens to themselves. David Cameron, and I like David, but he thought that he could hoodwink the country by saying, listen, we'll have a negotiation with Brussels and see what changed relationship we could get with the European Union.
Yeah.
And so he went to Brussels. He asked for very little. He came back with less. And then, surprise, surprise, he said, I've decided that we should remain within the European Union.
Yeah.
And then he tried to scare everybody with Project Fear.
Right.
The world was going to end if the United Kingdom voted to remain in the European Union. And quite the reverse. What's happened now? You've got Keir Starmer saying we're the fastest growing country in the G7.
Right.
Well, if that is the case, why do you want to relink yourself back to a European Union which is in sclerotic decline?
Yes.
And it is.
It is.
I'm going to Germany this weekend, Mike. I was there only a month ago, and you know that its economy is on its backside.
Yeah.
It relies on its motor. You've just been talking about cars, and nobody in Europe relies more on one industry than Germany on the motor manufacturing industry. And what's happening? You've got a ton of cars coming in from America with Tesla. You've got a ton of cars coming in from China with BYD and goodness knows what.
Right.
And these cars are coming in from China, Mike. They're half the price of ours. And they're top notch,
Yes,
So,
they really are, and they're ruining the European car market. And the problem is, as Donald Trump has actually said today, or last night rather, there's going to be more tariffs coming our way because we are not. He says he's not certain that we're not buying things from countries where slavery is being used to produce things. And of course, we all know that's what's happening in China. Because as you quite rightly say, some of these new cars coming like these JQs, the BYDs, they're basically copying, luxury cars in Europe, but doing them for half the price because they can.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. I mean, people are working for, I exaggerate when I say a bowl of rice a day, but the conditions in which people in China or parts of China are living are not to the standards that they are in Germany or France or indeed the United States of America. And so these cars are flooding into the United Kingdom, and in many cases they are of a higher standard than many of the cars that you could get domestically. So it's a fascinating time. But I go back to my main point, which is why would we want to, and all Starmer is doing when he talks about resetting the relationship between the United Kingdom and the European Union, is he's salami slicing Britain back into the European Union through the back door. We know exactly what he's doing. He said during the general election that we wouldn't join the single market, we wouldn't rejoin the common market. But what he's doing is, we'll join Erasmus and pay you hundreds of millions of British pounds in order to do that. We will comply with rules and regulations coming from the European Union. Why would we do that when we now have this one great opportunity, particularly with the onslaught of artificial intelligence and robotics? We could be well ahead of the game because the European Union is scared stiff of artificial intelligence. They're putting all sorts of rules and regulations on its advancement, and Britain could steal a march here.
Yeah, absolutely right. Because it seems to me that the things that he wants to do are counterintuitive to what our businesses want us to do. You know, why would we, for example, start adopting, you know, their rules on foodstuffs, or their rules on you know, chemicals, or their rules on pharmaceuticals, or anything that we've already got a control over, which we somehow want them to then regulate. And for the purposes of them regulating it, we give them £1 billion. It makes literally no sense. My theory, by the way, is that all of this stuff that's happening at the moment with border security checks and people spending hours and hours at airports and things, is, I'm sure, a deliberate manoeuvre by the EU, and Starmer's probably asked them to do it so that he can say, "Oh, look, I fixed all that by signing up to the new kind of, you know, single market situation," and then suddenly it will all stop.
Yeah, well, you know, all these ideas are coming from a man who tried to give the Chagos Islands away to another country and give them £35 billion, our money, in order to do so. So I don't think he thinks in exactly the same rational way that normal people do. That's for certain. And you're quite right about the European Union. When you have British people who want to go to Portugal or to France, spend their money in their countries, that's as good as an export, and they are forced to queue for an hour and a half to get in and an hour and a half to get out. Some people even missing their planes because of the queues. I got to say, I got to laugh though, Mike. As you know, I go to Athens a few times a year. I was there the other day. They've waived all that now. They've suspended. They've suspended the queues
which tells you,
which
tells you that they're not necessary, right? Because why would you bother?
Absolutely right.
You know, because similarly, I remember this happened the last time when we sort of left the European Union, and suddenly there was going to be new rules at the border checks, and you'd have to show your passport and they'd have to stamp it. And I remember going to Kos actually in Greece, thinking, "Oh, is it going to be a nightmare getting in?" And actually, it was better than it had been before, because instead of going in the EU queue, you went in your own queue. And when you go into a place like Greece, there's not thousands of Americans or thousands of Japanese or anything. There's just a few Brits going. So we literally had a queue all to ourselves, and the EU queue was about a mile long, and we just sailed through. And I was like, "This is great. It's actually better."
Do you know, the big question for me is when I come back to the United Kingdom and you go to our passport control, and as you know, we use the e-gates. Who else can use the e-gates?
Everyone from the EU.
And every country from the European Union, the United States of America can use our e-gates,
and Canada,
South Korea, right? So why do we do that? Because it's common sense. We want people to get in as quickly as we can with the proper checks that the machinery can do. Why can't we use the e-gates of these other countries? It's as simple as that. All we want is the same rights that we are giving them. And I got to say, right, if I'm the French government, I'm going to look at all these Brits who come in and go, "We want you to come in. We want you to spend your pounds in our country. Thank you very much." And if I was in Germany, right, when I go to Germany tomorrow, they should be welcoming me with open arms, because I'm going to spend my money in Berlin. And when their car industry is on their backside, they need all the money they can get. I mean, it's as I say, it is exactly like an export. And I get the sense as well that those who are Ramonas, as I still call them, will look at all these queues, they look at people missing their planes, and they go, that's because we left the European Union. We were insane to do so. Well, I've always said that if the relationship between us and the European Union is so bad and so toxic that the European Union want to punish us in this way, that they want to punish us for coming into their country to spend our money. Is that the sort of organisation we want to be a part of?
I know.
Not for me.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And you know, and then do you remember the days when people would say to you, "Well, why are you going to Europe for a holiday? You hate Europe." It's like, no, we don't hate Europe. We just hate the European Union. It's not the same thing. You know, Europe's brilliant. We love Europe, actually. Tell me about Berlin, because Berlin is a place that I've never been to, that I've always wanted to go. I'm told it's a real sort of cultural fest. What are you going there for?
No, I'm slowly learning German, and so I'm just doing a weekend of just brushing up on that. But it's a great walking city. It's got great restaurants. And you're absolutely right, by the way. It's amazing how many people can't quite get their heads around that people don't want to be part of a sclerotic organization, which is hugely bureaucratic, tells us what to do. You've got people like Ursula von der Leyen, who earns, what is it, 300,000 pounds a year, never mind her expenses, most of it going on lacquer for her hair, from what I can make out. Even in a gale force wind, that hair's not going to move, Mike, you know that. I once remember a researcher coming to see me, and he said, this is before the referendum, he said, you know, I'm thinking of voting Remain, Nigel. I said, you've got to do what you want to do. I'm not going to interfere with your democratic rights, I said, but do me a favour, just have a look. And have a look at the Commission, have a look at how much money they're spending, earning rather, from the European Union, and just do a little paper on me about that, because, you know, I was clearly part of the campaign to leave the European Union. And he came back a day later and he said, I've decided to change my mind. He said they're all on incredible sums of money. They've also got special shops within the European Union where they're able to buy goods with no tax on whatsoever. He said, no, I've had enough of this.
Well, do you remember that other ridiculous thing? I don't know if they still do it, but that every sort of year they decant themselves from Brussels onto a train, which then takes them all to Strasbourg, where they spend about a month living it up on high on the hog on hotels, restaurants, you know. And I remember one year the train broke down and they all had to get out and stagger about some field or other in the middle of nowhere, right? Do you remember that?
Yeah, no, it's still going on. For an organisation that prides itself on the environment and wanting to get to net zero and forcing the rest of us not to travel, 10 times a year, the European Union decant from Brussels to Strasbourg. They pack everything up into containers. It all gets shipped down to the special parliament that they've got in Strasbourg. These cases get left outside offices. In some cases, they're never even opened. All the MEPs and all the bureaucrats, the Eurocrats, all go down to Brussels in order to spend 1 week there. So that happens 10 times a year. And that was all because the French, who are supposed to be incredibly communautaire, turned to Brussels and said, unless you allow Strasbourg still to be one of the two centres of the European Union, we will block legislation coming through the European Union. And so in the end, Brussels caved in to France. It would be so much more sensible, Mike, if they mothballed that building. It's a glorious building, by the way. I used to be on the Council of Europe, and our building, which is quite tatty in comparison, adjoins the European Parliament building, and you just wouldn't believe it. I mean, it literally is one of the reasons, again, why I voted to leave the European Union. You know, people say to me, our economy is doing worse. Well, not according to Keir Starmer it is. We're now one of the fastest growing economies in the European Union. But it wasn't the reason why I voted to leave. I would vote to leave again and again and again. It's because of democracy. I don't want decisions that are going to affect my country being made in the European Union by 7 other countries who could outvote us. I mean, that's not what it's all about, Mike.
No,
so it's a democracy thing for me.
Completely insane. I'm going to let you go. I appreciate you spending time with us. A lovely looking garden in the background there. I'm assuming that's
Colonel Bob Stewart.
I was going to say,
have
you taken over somebody else's house? And you have.
He's gardening. I'm looking at him now.
Give him my regards.
You know, don't forget, Mike, you're coming to our garden party on the 19th of July. And bring Charlotte with you.
Yes, I will. I'll do that. Yeah, because she might be down for that. 19th of July. Mark it down in your diary. That would be great. Final question. I don't know whether this was an AI picture, but I saw a picture yesterday that somebody put out on Twitter of Graham Brady apparently going into number 10 Downing Street. Did you see that? And if so, is it true? And if it is true, what's he doing in there?
Right. Well, as you know, I suspect it is either AI or old footage, because when Graham was chair of the 1922 committee and I was his secretary, so I used to sit behind Graham. And one of the beauties of the 1922 committee, for everybody else, but not the Prime Minister, is that we have the ability to send, in this case, the man in a grey suit into 10 Downing Street to tap the Prime Minister on the shoulder and say, your time is up.
Time is up,
and I think the big joke is within the Labour Party, they haven't got that facility. Do you know, the beauty, let's go back to where we started, the Makerfield by-election. If Reform win that by-election, then Andy Burnham doesn't get into number 10. We all know what the game is about the Makerfield by-election. And so what happens? We know Wes Streeting hasn't got his 81 signatures. Darren Jones, his WhatsApp messages have been made available by a leak today, strangely not through the normal process, this, Mike. And we all know that he was so sympathetic towards Peter Mandelson that he commiserated with him on the day that he was sacked, and he was seeking advice from Peter Mandelson. We also know Darren Jones, not even a household name in his own household, has got ambitions to be Prime Minister. I think he can forget that now, Mike. And so we're going back to Graham Brady, who had the ability to remove Prime Ministers. In the Labour Party's case, they don't have that. If Reform win the by-election in Makerfield, Keir Starmer limps on, because that's the process they've got. They haven't got anybody in the Labour Party with the 22 committee to tap Keir Starmer on the shoulder and say, Keir, time's up.
Yeah.
People have had enough.
Time
They
to
just
not
haven't
be.
got that.
Time to not be here, Keir, I think would be the words, wouldn't they? Brilliant. Nigel, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. We'll see you for a couple of parties in the summer, I suspect. There's a few that I've been invited to over the course of time. And just the message for Dan Wootton, they're not Reform parties, they're Tory parties. So, you know, I don't mind who I drink with, to be honest. Now, we're going to speak very shortly to a first-time guest on the show, Satish K. Sharma, a very smart guy who's going to be telling us all about the philosophy of life and possibly what he thinks of what's going on out there in the big wide world. First of all, though, why don't we do a bit of Makerfield action, right? Andy Burnham's diary, which is driving everybody insane. We've got a clip of that. I think it's number 9. Can we have a look at that?
No clean air zone, not now, not in the future. I've got good news in case you missed it. In the next figures to be released shortly on air pollution in Greater Manchester, the Wigan Borough will officially be legally compliant. And that's a massive thing, because it obviously means no clean air zone, not now, not in the future. There's 2 things that have brought this about. Firstly, when people rightly were bringing their concerns to me, I negotiated an extension in the legal direction. Boris Johnson's government was telling us that we had to clean up the air by 2024, but we got an extension to 2026. And that allowed, secondly, us to be able to use the B network to do the main job of cleaning up the air, with newer buses coming in, electric buses, of course people buying cleaner vehicles as well, and all of that has contributed to the point where now the air is legally compliant. And this just finally shows you what I do as a politician. I listen to people. I take on board people's feedback, and then I do something about it. And I did do something about it. And together we've got to a point where we've cleaned up our air, but we've done it in the best possible way.
Oh, we're back. Before we speak to Satish Sharma, we played yesterday a little ditty from Don Louise, who's actually put this together as an anti-Burnham song. Let's have a little blast of it, shall we? No? We don't have it? Right. Well, don't worry, we can play it towards the end of the show. We can, just get it ready. We'll play it later. I just quite like the idea of a little bit of musical introduction. But anyway, never mind. Satish K. Sharma is here. Very good to see you. Very nice to meet you.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Mike Graham Show. And now Charlotte had told me you were coming in, and I said, to be honest, and I'm sorry to say this, I didn't know who you were. So tell us about yourself. Tell us why you're here.
Great to be here. I really appreciate the invitation as well. So where do we start? I'm a Hindu scholar, a religious scholar. 4 generations in this country. Been here 60 years.
Right.
And like most of the members of my community, we just get on with what we do.
Yes.
But there's a distinct sense now that we need to step out and join the national conversation. There are things happening here which impact upon all of us.
Yeah.
And perhaps maybe we have a perspective and a voice to contribute which hasn't been heard.
Yeah, because I guess in the 60 years that you've been here, or that your generations have been here, there's quite a lot of changes have happened. And maybe more rapidly in the last 5 years, perhaps.
I'm a child of the 60s, I suppose. I was born overseas, but came here when I was really young. And so we lived through the era of the mods and the skinheads, and we saw a lot of racism and white supremacy at that time. So we can recognise a lot of these symptoms.
Yeah.
And we can also recognise what claims to be racist, if it's politically correct, but isn't. And so we've been seeing that the political class has gotten to a point where it's using our potential victimhood for their political advantage.
Right.
And that's inappropriate.
I think so, yeah, because we've become, I think, confused about racism in this country, I think, because, and I keep saying it, and eventually, I'm going to say this again, eventually we're going to have to play the clip, but Cathy Newman did an interview with Zia Yusuf the other day on Sky News, where she now operates from, and I found it to be a really curious juxtaposition of who was saying what to whom, because she was kind of taking the view that he should be vilified for defending a man who apparently had been the victim of racism, anti-white racism by the police and by a Sikh man. And she was sort of taking the almost ludicrous role of perhaps being a minority view against a majority view, but the skin colour was turned around. And I was kind of going, this is kind of quite baffling to me, the way, how have we got here exactly?
It's totally disorienting. And
yeah.
I think what really prompted me to step forward was July 24, when the Prime Minister stood up in Southport after that incredible tragedy and started to make remarks about the far right.
Yeah.
And it struck me that if there's one community that has to be fearful of the far right, then I'm probably a member of that community.
Right.
And yet what he was saying sent an alarm across our community that, hang on a moment, there's somebody here supposedly acting on our behalf, in our interests, and yet I would go as far as to say that the positions he has taken and his government have taken, we feel them to be more dangerous to us than this notional far right, this
But it's also,
flogging
is
boy.
it not also very sort of symptomatic of our problems today that people want to, put you in a box in some way, shape or form? For example, they see you as a Hindu man, therefore you must be left-wing in Britain, which is sort of insane. Like they don't know anything about Hindu nationalism in India, which is very, very un-left-wing, shall we say. And in some ways people think it's actually quite a dangerous phenomenon. You've also got, people who assume that Reform as a party is full of sort of white supremacists. And there's plenty of people who are not white who support Reform. There are plenty of people in the party in senior positions like Zia Yusuf, who's a Muslim, Layla Cunningham. These are not people who are in any way pushing any kind of white agenda, And so I think it's the left, and you correct me if you disagree, but I think it's the left that seem to want to push these narratives, that you must be a victim because your skin's brown. I must be an oppressor because mine's white,
These are very shallow slogans, aren't they? But they're really effective at mobilising people's emotions. And I think we're seeing the end of the time when the British indigenous majority, they've had enough of being triggered by emotional manipulation. It doesn't work
And also
anymore.
they've had enough of being insulted, frankly, by politicians who think because they disagree with them that somehow they're wrong. Because opinions surely can never be wrong. I come from a very argumentative Scottish family. And I was raised to argue about pretty much everything around the dinner table. That was what we did. And you had to make your point and you had to have a good argument. But you couldn't be accused of being wrong in terms of, just having the wrong attitude. Whereas now, you can see in certain politicians' eyes that, like people who don't want to come on my show because they disagree with me. It's like, all right, fine, don't then. But you're not going to get anywhere by doing that. You're just going to be siloed.
Like I grew up in the East Midlands.
Yeah.
And, there are people there who, their attitude is, I think the expression would be no flannel.
Yeah.
Right, so there's a directness and it's a very robust and genuine directness.
Sure.
And people know that there's no malicious intent.
Right.
So if nobody wants to give offence, then really you've got no right to take offence. You look at the intent, don't you?
Yes.
Whereas
and
nowadays,
I'm sure that, there are some people who are objectionable and there are some people who are deliberately offensive, but you don't deal with them by not dealing with them. You deal with them by showing them up, don't you?
I would much rather they were openly offensive.
Yeah.
At least you know where you stand.
Right.
Whereas the ones who are very, the politicians, the current sort of layer of politicians we have, very few of them are offensive.
Right.
Openly.
No.
And yet some of the policies that seem to creep out, you think, where on earth did you get that idea from?
Yeah, exactly.
It's totally offensive.
And why do you believe that? And why don't you give us the chance to talk to you about it so that we can prove you wrong, in effect? For example, people always go back to the days of Nick Griffin and the BNP, and when he was allowed onto Question Time, huge furore at the time. Why is he being given the oxygen publicity? it was the worst thing he could have ever done, because when he appeared, he proved himself to be a complete and utter numpty and was never really taken seriously ever again. And, you know, I feel very uneasy, shall we say, about the way that Shabana Mahmood now is going around banning people from coming to Britain on the basis that she doesn't like what they're going to say. You know, the most recent one was this guy Sink, what's his name, Uyghur or something, you know, the Turkish guy.
Cenk
Uyghur,
yeah.
Sorry. There we go. I've really insulted him by mispronouncing his name. You know, and he was on Jacob Rees-Mogg's show the other night on GB News, proving himself to be a complete and utter blowhard, you know. I'm talking absolute nonsense and just shouting. You know, let him come. What's the problem? You know, we've got you know, the people who, from the other side of the argument, from the right, who were banned from coming. There was 2 of them, I think, were MEPs. One from Poland, one from the Netherlands. You know, these are democratically elected people. You might not like what they've got to say, but you shouldn't be banning them from coming here, should you?
This is siege mentality, isn't it? When you know that you're besieged, you pull up the drawbridge so that nobody else can possibly criticise you.
Except that we live in a world where there are no borders anymore. Correct. You know, the internet exists. Correct. If you want to listen to Cenk, whatever his name is, you just have to watch Piers Morgan's show. He seems to be on it about every 2 nights, you know. Or you look at his YouTube channel. You know, you can't stop that.
We need the courage of people who would have the courage to invite somebody who's been a vegetarian for at least 4 generations onto his show first thing in the morning and have an open conversation about these things. But the point about Shabana Mahmood, there was something that came to my mind, and that was that we as a British population now, I think we've understood that there are people who claim to be on the moral high ground and they don't belong there anymore. Now, you mentioned reform. I've been watching Rupert Lowe and Restore, and if there's anybody who sits rightly on the moral high ground, I would say Rupert Lowe, by his actions, has managed to put himself on the moral high ground. And people are appreciating it. They're saying, here's somebody who's courageous, he's gone against the current rhetoric and done something which we think actually is morally absolutely justified. And
what do you mean by that? What specifically do you think he's done?
Well, the grooming gangs inquiry, the manner in which he's absolutely clear about what is indigenous and what isn't indigenous without being racist in the genuine sense of the word. He's actually being able to sift through and connect with, there are people in this country whose families have contributed for a long period of time. I'm not indigenous to these islands. I'm not English. I'm a British citizen, but I'm not English, and that's quite clear to me. And we have a proud ancestry in a different nation. In the same way, there are people here who have proud ancestries in this nation. And that's nice and straightforward, and it's not complicated. And anybody who tries to complicate that, I think, is going against the instinct of people.
And you'll find, I mean, I remember there was a big argument that went on about that exact question, because I think somebody came out and said about Rishi Sunak that he was British but not English.
Absolutely.
And the whole hell broke loose, you know, and people were going, I think it was Fraser Nelson, was arguing with people on Twitter like all day about it, saying it's a terribly racist point of view. But you're right. I mean, because and I guess if you, I've never interviewed Rishi Sunak, but he might agree with you. He might say, actually, no, I'm not English. I am British, though. You know, I've got a British passport. That's not the same thing. But the trouble, I suppose, I mean, and the other thing I think that Rupert Lowe should be praised for is that he gives his salary every month to a different charity, whether it be in Great Yarmouth or elsewhere, you know, which I think also shows that he's a man of some principle, because there's plenty of MPs who could do that because they're wealthy enough to do without their salary, but they don't. So, you know, I give him plenty of credit. However, I think that the other problem for Rupert Lowe, though, is that he's got certain people who are attracted to his way of thinking, who have got slightly more extreme views than that. And again, I'm not going to say they shouldn't have them, but it wouldn't make me want them to be in a position of influence or power.
You see, on that point, I thought about this an awful lot before. I published a paper on indigeneity and stakeholders and stuff like that recently. And I think it's unreasonable to expect everybody to have the same value system and the same perceptions and opinions. So if we have people who are actually racist, and on the basis of their lived experience, they think that's a justified position, I don't have any difficulty with that at all. Where I think it becomes a problem is when they start to enact policies which prevent other people from enjoying their freedoms and their human rights. So absolutely have racist positions if that's what your life has taught you. but we have to stay within the boundaries of the law.
Right.
We have to stay within the boundaries of all of us contributing to the greater good of the country.
Yes.
As long as that happens, I think the diversity of opinion, no matter how extreme it is on both sides, actually contributes to the national conversation.
Sure, and I guess as well you have to read into that when you say within the bounds of the law, you have to make sure the law is correct, because if the law isn't correct, then suddenly you have a problem. Like, for example, what we've seen with the police in this Henry Nowak case, where the police have now themselves admitted that they've instructed their officers to behave differently and to act differently around different ethnic minorities, which is insane.
Speaking as a member of the community who is supposed to be protected, i.e. what they call the BAME sort of category.
Haven't heard that phrase for a while. People have stopped using it.
I think Labour reintroduced it only a few months ago.
Okay.
And I thought, well, here we go again.
Yeah.
You know, we're no longer British, we're now part of this little subcategory. Yeah. But being a part of that group, I think what the police are saying that they did in our interest is actually flawed. I don't buy that at all. I was reading the College of Policing's policy on the way in to see what their standards were, and they have completely lost the plot. Notionally, they're acting to protect us as a visible and a vulnerable minority, but I don't see it at all. What I'm seeing is they're stoking the difference.
Well, the thing is, surely they should be protecting people who are not criminals as opposed to protecting criminals, because effectively their policy says that if you're a criminal who happens to have brown skin, you'll be treated better or differently to a white criminal. Surely the criminals should be treated the same.
Absolutely. You know, outside the Old Bailey, there's a statue of Lady Jurisprudence, and she's blindfolded. And now what it seems is that rather than a blindfold, she has a multiplicity of spectacles, which are different colours.
And probably a rainbow lanyard, to be honest, you know. But certainly I was suggesting the other day that if somebody should go and check the statue to see whether the scales have moved, because they don't seem to be even anymore. And the people that come up with all this stuff and this nonsense are driven by what I call an ideology, which is the DEI ideology, which has really poisoned, I think, every single aspect of our lives, particularly in the public sector, particularly in police and justice and in the law courts as well. Because you've got, for example, we mentioned this the other day, judges now who are so left-wing that even if people are found guilty of a crime, as some of the Just Stop Oil people were, they refuse to sentence them to anything on the grounds that, they're saving the planet, they're doing something right.
This lack of equality in front of the law is what destroys multiculturalism. I think the way multiculturalism works is that within each of our little communities, we're protected by the boundary of the law. And what we don't do is step outside and cause problems for other groupings, whether they're football fans of a different club or whatever it is. But the moment that the judiciary starts to say, well, this particular group, we're going to apply the law differently, then the whole edifice of multiculturalism is threatened. And I think every group should actually step forward and say, no, this partial view of a victim, it undermines everything. I was just reflecting on the poor police officer who went to attend that crime, Henry Nowak. And I'm sure he was probably a young person who's received a great deal of pressure and teaching and guidance from above. And his mindset, I don't think, was mature enough to recognise just what was happening. This is a criminal, here's a victim. This poor man lying on the floor has been deprived of his fundamental right to life. And here I am reading out his rights. You know, how does that work? What sort of a mindset would actually interpret that?
Well, I said this the other day, that in fact, he was doing his job as far as he was concerned. He was doing what he was trained to do, which was that, a crime had been reported, and it was not the crime of stabbing, it was the crime of racial abuse. And so he thought he was responding to that, and so he wasn't able to see anything else. Everything else was outside of that box.
He was already programmed to respond to a particular trigger. And the criminal in this case knew how to pull that trigger. And that's terrible. I mean, this young man, I don't hold him responsible other than for his immediate reactions. As much as I hold the police officers above him.
I think we would have all liked him to treat the victim better. We would like to see him speaking to him with some more respect, because I've found, and I know that some people think this is terribly old-fashioned, but I found the use of the word mate to be quite offensive, actually, and that he should have called him sir. I mean, I know this, you might think I'm back in the 50s or something, but, you know, I prefer my police officers to be respectful to the people who are paying their salaries, effectively. And even if you are, and police officers disagreed with me and said it's ridiculous, you're an idiot, you shouldn't be expecting that. But, I would say no, until you establish that I'm the bad guy, you should be calling me sir in that situation.
We have this notion that we're all policed by consent.
Yeah. That's what they keep telling us.
They keep telling us.
It's not my consent.
I did a quick trawl the other day on how many times have the police actually attacked physically the British citizenry.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised at how many occasions it's happened.
I'm sure.
And it makes you wonder, well, do they serve the state and the establishment, or do they genuinely serve the people?
Yes. They seem to enjoy steaming in occasionally. In fact, I know a couple of police officers, former police officers, who were involved in like special patrol groups and stuff like that, and they've told me, we used to love it when we could go in hard. It was like what they lived for. They were like, great, let's go. And there's a few scumbags over there, we'll get the truncheons out and go batter them. But let me ask you another question. A lot of people say multiculturalism has failed in this country, right? I think that's right. People say we don't really have a multicultural society. We have a sort of various different monocultures which do not somehow mingle together. But we do have a multiracial society, which is fine. So where would you stand on that?
A bit of both.
Yeah.
I don't think multiculturalism has failed because the vast majority of different cultures who've come to this country, they stay within the parameters of the law. And so long as that happens, then we can coexist without any problems, and we can explore our differences.
But they can coexist, but they are, in some ways, ghettoised, though, aren't they?
So we have a story from the 16th century in India where a group of Zoroastrians who were fleeing the caliphate, they landed on the shores of India, and the king invited their leader to come and have a conversation, and he put a bowl of milk in front of him, which was filled to the top. And he said, look, this is the situation of my kingdom. I don't want to pour anything more into there so it overflows. And the head priest of the Zoroastrians, he poured out a little bit of sugar. And he said, we will mingle in the same way that this sugar is going to add an extra flavour to your milk, but without making it overflow. And that's a policy, I think, which works.
As long as you don't turn everybody into a diabetic.
It depends whether it's brown sugar or not.
Yeah, but
but I understand the
you know what I mean?
point,
because my worry is, I'm all for, when I was growing up in London in the 60s, like yourself, my parents were immigrants in a way. They were Scottish coming to London, but we used to go out every Friday night. They'd take us out to a different restaurant. Italian one night, Greek restaurants. There was a Polish restaurant in Hampstead. We went to Vera Swami's for the first curry I had when I was about seven or eight. I know. I think it's almost closing, but still there.
Yeah.
And to me, that was the multicultural London that I wanted. It was there was everything was here. But now, if I go to somewhere like Whitechapel, where I see a tube sign in Bangladeshi or an Urdu, I'm thinking, well, this is not really what I was signed up for, if you like. I'm very happy if you want to put your mosque there. I'm very happy if you want to have some really great kind of Indian shops where you can go and buy fabrics and saris and all the rest of it. Fine, but I don't want it to become un-English, if you like. And I think that's what's happened.
I agree, and I think the instinct.
And that bit surely is how multiculturalism has failed, isn't it?
I don't think so. I think that's too sweeping a statement. I think you have to dig into the nuances.
I do a lot of that.
Yeah.
I'll try not to.
Stimulates good conversation.
Yeah.
But I do think the majority of the different cultures in this country have worked out really well how to intermingle. And when children go to schools together, they actually grow up together with a shared understanding of our values.
Yeah.
Even English values and Scottish values.
And that can
so
be
on.
fine too, but certainly in parts of London where I go, like South East London in particular, there are many schools where there aren't any white kids.
Yeah, and I think
there are none.
That's so wrong.
That can't be right, can it?
It can't be right, and it doesn't lead to a future where all of us can actually explore our differences and the things that we bring, which we're not familiar with a bit of joy and a bit of happiness.
Because it still is. I mean, the British nation is still a country which is something like 92% white, but you wouldn't know it walking around London.
So I'm going to pick that a little bit. You said the British nation.
Yeah.
I grew up with English people.
Yeah.
I know the English identity. And I've got really good friends who are Irish and
Yeah.
Scottish. I don't have friends who are Welsh. I'll have to do something
Yeah.
about that.
All right.
But all of those identities are unique, they're different, they're valuable, and they're all robust, solid, decent identities.
Yeah.
The British identity is different. And I think this is something that the indigenous identities are going to start to learn. I didn't meet a British identity until I came to London,
Yeah.
particularly into the Westminster area.
Right.
And then I discovered what a British identity really was.
Okay.
And I think the English, the Welsh, the Irish and the Scottish are rediscovering that there is another identity here, which actually doesn't perhaps have their best interests at heart.
Yeah. And what is it then that it's not got our interest at
So
heart?
in
What is that?
Ireland, there's a saying that if you walk past a house and there's a quarrel going on inside, a Britisher has walked by. And in Syria, there's a saying which says that if you come to a pond and there are two fish and they're fighting, a British person has walked by. So that's a fairly diverse geographical range. And the British identity outside of these islands is not particularly viewed as being the warm, welcoming, robust, direct identity that perhaps we've been taught.
Okay. But in which case, that's fine if you're in Syria or Ireland. But if you're in Britain, you shouldn't be thinking that, should you?
Why? Isn't that the reality?
Well, I don't think so. I'm quite proud to be British. I'm not English either, because I was born in London, but my parents were Scottish.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely British. I've got a British passport. And if I go to another country, I wouldn't expect to be jeered at.
I think this is going to be a really interesting exploration, because the people who live on these islands, the account of history that they've been taught is perhaps different to the lived experience of 62 nations which celebrate freedom from British occupation, not from Irish or English
but a lot of them
or Scottish or Welsh.
have not just celebrated it, they've seen their countries go to rack and ruin as a result of Britain leaving as well. But I can see this is a conversation another time.
This is a wonderful conversation. We should have this with a bit more prep.
I mean, I went to India many years ago, and Delhi, to me, looked like London. You know, New Delhi in particular, with all the Lutyens, architecture, and if it wasn't for the heat and the dust, as we call it.
I spent my first few years in that part of New Delhi. Yeah.
You wouldn't have known you were in anywhere but England. You know, English was the common language. You know, you'd buy the Times of India every morning to read it, and it was this charming kind of Victorian English that you'd be reading. And I was there to cover a Heads of Commonwealth meeting, and it was charmingly British, all of it. You know, and I know it might be a bit different now. This was back in sort of the early, well, probably 80s actually.
No, it's pretty much the same. I was only there a short while
ago. And so
ago.
my view of India's acceptance of Britishness would be that actually an awful lot of people in India liked it. And that's why they came here.
There is a whole conversation to be had.
There is. You'll have to come back and do that with us.
I would look forward to it.
Thank you very much indeed.
It's a pleasure.
Lovely to meet you, Satish. Where can people find your thoughts and
probably on
ramblings?
X at The British Hindu.
The British Hindu, okay.
I have a part British identity and a bit of a Hindu identity.
Excellent. Well, I hope you don't get too much abuse for having a British identity.
I have to punch myself up regularly.
Right, it's 10 o'clock. I don't know how we got here, but we've had a great time. Super chat time, is it? Perhaps? Yeah. If we have a couple to do. Red Leader says, great show, greetings from Missouri in the US of A. Yes, very nice to see you. Thank you for joining us. A lot of Americans actually joining the show because it is very commonsensical. Bit of Pooch's Pooch to finish up.
Good.
Bailey, Rocky, 1, go!
The German chef is very well behaved, isn't he?
No way!
Fantastic.
No way! Bailey champion!
Yeah,
Bailey,
absolutely.
Bailey champion and chicken for champion.
Brilliant. Marvellous. I've got a new Ziggy clip as well. We'll do that tomorrow maybe, because it is Thursday today. We're going to be doing Plank of the Week, of course, tomorrow. Plonk of the Week coming out Saturday night. I think we're doing that one very shortly here today, filming it. But thanks to all of you. Thanks to all our great guests today. Ben Habib was on earlier. William Yarwood, of course. Kinsey Schofield, Linda Duberly, Jamie Jenkins, Lee Harris, Ben Powell, Nigel Evans from Bob Stewart's Garden, and Satish Sharma, the British Hindu. Fascinating stuff. We'll see you tomorrow at 7 a.m.